The introduction, my beloved husband Azurtanya to Speaker 2. And speaking of speakers, wherefore art thou, Speaker 3? You know my long-distance vision is terrible. I would like everybody to meet Marianne Calloway, Speaker 3. Please stand up, Mac. Sorry, just had to do that. All right, I would like to welcome all of you also to Phoenix, Arizona. You know, a long time ago I got called out to here. Actually, it was to Mesa, Arizona, and I didn't know it was a place that existed until I found a map, and sure enough, it was right outside of Phoenix. There are very special planetary grids here, energies that run beneath the surface of the sand and dirt. There are very special energies that work here on both positive and negative sides. And it's almost like coming full circle for me and my work as a speaker of the Emerald Covenant to come out to Phoenix right before we're about to embark on a journey that for me as an American citizen is kind of like going to another planet. We're moving to England because we've been asked to go there on commission because Stargate 11 is located in England and there's work that needs to be done there. By the end of our workshop, which is going to be one of those, for those of you who have been with the work for a while, you know those crash course things where you go from like 10:30 in the morning till 10:30 at night or so, and by the time you're done, you're so tired you can't remember what you started with, maybe what you finished with, but it all settles down and eventually you remember by the time you leave. It's going to be another one of those weekends. We're going to because there's a lot of material to cover. Now, we're going to cover the Dance for Life and the Dance for Love programs. Some of you have been through them before when they're introduced in Sarasota, and they all, with our programs, most of you who followed along with us know that one thing can be repeated, but it's never quite repeated the same way twice. There's always something more added, another piece of growth or of evolution from one time that a program is given to the next. So in this particular presentation of the combined Dance for Life and Dance for Love program, we're also going to get, toward the end, the highlights of what was the contact course that was given in Bermuda in July. On that trip, we were privileged to receive from the Guardians, from the Iani, the beginning of a set of 15 new techniques that once we evolve to the point where we can use them and hold the energy that they represent, all of the things that we were using before that took so much time and so much effort to learn how to do and remember how to do and to actually get to doing it, it will actually go on autopilot. So this is the beginning, too, of the introduction to the Dance for Freedom, which was part 3 of the Dance for program, which has 4 parts. The Dance for Freedom in its entirety is going to be introduced first in France in November. But this is the beginning of the techniques. The Iani and the Guardian Alliance wanted us to have the new techniques as soon as possible, so they're actually introduced in the Bermuda trip in July, which was far ahead of schedule. They will be included on the last day of this workshop, so you can begin to work with them. We're also going to explore many things. The Dance for programs in and of themselves are about coming to understand the joy of what it means to be a spiritual being, experiencing a manifest experience. They're complex in a certain way, but very simple in another way. They employ the ancient sacred arts of dance and song, and the ancient knowledge that is quite sophisticated of DNA template mechanics and 15-dimensional subtle body anatomy. With all of that, it comes down to a set of practices that one can do to take full conscious control of your evolutionary destiny, if one chooses. You don't have to. But once you realize that you can, and that once upon a time the human race did this as common knowledge, it was part of everyday living, it becomes a perspective on reality that once you get to the point where you see the significance of these ancient technologies and how they can be used in the present time, there's no turning back. In our society right now, we look around and there's lots of theories everywhere. Science has theories, religion has theories, everybody has theories. What theory really translates into is guesses. People are looking at outside manifestation and attempting to guess at what is the hidden part that allows that to be. It seems, and we are taught on this planet, that theory is the only way man or woman can understand the relationship to themselves, the universe, the stars, to God. But what if the true reality of things is that once upon a time, there was much more than theory. There was fact. There is a fact somewhere in the universe of how this planet was created, how the cosmos were created, how the human race was created, and why. And what if there were beings that have for eons held the sacred teachings and records of not theory, but of the facts of creation, the facts of history, the facts of sacred mechanics by which spiritual beings become manifest to know the experience of walking a three-dimensional hologram, a hologram that can be joyful and ecstatic, or it can be sorrowful and devastating if you become lost within it and forget why you're here or what the hologram is. We're a race of beings on this planet right now that have been, for at least 25,500 years and more, been denied the remembrance of the facts of our existence. Our history has been removed from this planet. The science records, divine science records, have been removed from this planet. And we have evolved as little children, sleeping children, that anybody else out there could come up with a theory to tell us where we are, where we came from, why we're here, because we sure as heck don't remember. That can change. There was a promise that was given repeatedly, literally for the last 250 billion years in our universe, literally for the last 5.5 million years on planet Earth, a promise that was made by elder race humans who do hold the knowledge of the facts of creation, that they would repeatedly, at different times, bring back the ancient records of truth. They're called the Founders' Race teachings. They're called the Cloister Doratura Plate teachings, the teachings of the Emerald Covenant. They are the teachings of freedom by which a being in manifestation can not only get back in touch with the history that put it here, not only get back in touch with the science by which reality works, but get back in touch with the precious personal power that was each one of our gift from a common creator, the power to manifest the experience of life that we would choose to experience. We have been raised for so long now in a world that we're told the world happens to us from the outside. We are at the mercy of our environment, of politics, of economics, of all sorts of structures. Where the heck these structures come from in the first place? Did God create economics? Did God create politics? Is there a God in the first place? Here we are again, back to theories, millions of them. We can play with theories from now until eternity if we want to. And for the people who want to do that, all power to you. Have a ball. I know, I'm tired of playing with theories. When the information on the CDD plates, the Emerald Covenant teachings, were brought back, and I was permitted from the age of 4 to begin training in understanding those teachings again, gratitude was my first response. I didn't care how strange I might appear compared to the people next to me and how weird the teachings might be compared to what they were teaching me in grade school. What I responded to most was the sense of freedom that comes from feeling your eternal presence. Each one of us has within us an eternal spiritual presence that cannot be destroyed, cannot be negated. But what can be negated is our ability to fully express it here in the three-dimensional arena. It can be negated only by ignorance. This place has been plagued by the disease of ignorance since 25,500 BC. In the Christ period, much later, closer to our time, beginning in 12 BC, the teachings of freedom were being brought back to us, but they were confiscated and twisted to become a control dogma that they were never intended to become. They were the teachings of the Christos. The Christos is an ancient word derived from the word Christ, K-R-I-S-T, which is a sonic translation of a vibration, the outside sound that a particular vibration of reality and consciousness makes when you verbalize it. The Christ was the divine template upon which creation was structured. It doesn't belong to one being called Jesus Christ that came a long time ago to tell you to worship him because he was your way back. It is something that lives and is alive within each one of us and always will be. It doesn't matter if you're Christian or Jewish or Muslim or from Mars or Venus or anywhere else up there. The Christ and the Christos and the Christalla, which is the feminine expression of the Christos, is alive within each being. Both of them, both of those forces. And there are three forces that we call the God forces, which are the first expressions of God's source into individuation. The Manu, the Mane, and the Ire forces. These are the forces from which the life force that forms the cosmos and forms universes come from. So each one of us are small individuated expressions of those three forces and of the one force that is truly nameless. Some people choose to call it God. Some people choose to call it Source. Some people choose to call it the Unisai, which is an Anahazi word, the ancient Elohai Elohim language. That means point of all union, the original point of oneness out of which all things and within which all things emerge into individuated expression. The teachings of the Emerald Covenant are sacred, but they are also common knowledge to infinite reality fields that extend beyond this little place we call Earth. This information only appears weird and strange when you put it against the distortions and guesswork theories that we have been fed as fact on this planet. So for the people who have been with us for a while, you know all this already, but for the people who are just joining us, we would like you to understand we have a precious gift called free will choice. We can choose what to believe, what not to believe. We can choose what belief filter we will use to create our experienced reality. So when you're confronted with some of the teachings that may appear new and strange that you'll encounter in the dance floor programs, try to remember you have a choice of how to react to those teachings. Are you going to run away from them because there's something new and because they might expand beyond the boundaries of other things you've been taught? Or are you going to say, okay, nobody said I have to agree with it, but can I grow from this right now? Can my ideas expand in a way that gives me more freedom, more joy, more love, more life? The most important gift we can give to ourselves is joy. Joy was the original intention of Creator, of God, of Source, in creating the manifest reality fields in the first place. They were free will systems. When man on earth, and not just man, but woman too, got into the habit of defining God in the image of man and woman, as opposed to understanding themselves as manifest expressions and reflections of God, that's when we began to get twisted. Because in our own limitations, and the limitations we felt and perceived as real, we limited the power, the ability, and the love that Creator or God or Source has. We tried to define God in our own image, instead of trying to define ourselves in the image of a God that was loving enough to give us free will, loving enough to allow us to be individual expressions of what that Source is. We can choose to remember the joy. We can choose to remember the original intention of Source when it created, and to choose to re-embody that intention by saying, well, it may be confusing out there, and there's a whole lot of stuff I still don't get, and my life still really sucks sometimes. But you know what? That's okay. Because if I have the ability to somehow, without knowing how I'm doing it, create a life that really bugs me sometimes, I also have the ability to change that. If we can realize one thing, that the thoughts we think and what we allow our mental body to do is actually setting the template of manifestation for how events, personally and within the mass arena, will unfold. We start to understand our power. If your life has been hard, which most indigo children's life has been hard, because we took on a burden of karma, not just for ourselves, but for the race, for the human race. If your life is hard, it means there are distortions of the original intention that you carry somewhere within you. That somewhere is a place we'll find through the Dance for Life and Love programs. It's actually a very simple technical glitch in the way the anatomy functions that has taken the beauty of our creative ability, where thought becomes manifest, and twisted it into something that looks like somebody else is thinking it, because it certainly isn't what I wanted to create. In the course of the Dance Floor programs, we're going to learn about the ancient secrets of Merkaba mechanics. And believe me, we teach Merkaba like nobody else on the planet right now teaches Merkaba. We'll tell you what it is, why it's important, how it fits into the natural structure of the universe. We'll tell you where yours is, what it's supposed to look like, what it's doing right now that it shouldn't be doing, how that affects your manifestation process, how that affects your spiritual integration process, and what you can do to fix that. We'll teach you the connection between Merkaba and DNA, something called the DNA template, and the chemical DNA. This is the stuff that even science has validated for us already. That chemical DNA stuff that looks like little ladders that are rolled up in balls somewhere in the nucleus of our cells. The stuff that determines what color hair we'll have, what color eyes we'll have. It's also the stuff that determines how much of our higher dimensional consciousness we will be able to get into our body in this lifetime. It will determine whether we have the ability to pass through a stargate in ascension in this lifetime or whether we will not. What science won't tell you here, however, is that we have the ability to directly interface with our DNA and to begin to make the most crucial changes, to bring it back to its original order and turn on the things science calls junk DNA, the spacer DNA sequences, the dormant DNA sequences that right now don't produce proteins, so they're considered inert. They weren't meant to be dormant. This is what waking up means. Waking up spiritually is not just a concept. It's not mental masturbation. It's not just praying to some God up there to hopefully get you together so you can do the spiritual awakening thing. What is spiritual awakening? I don't know. Some people that get little touches of it. I felt an expansion once. I felt it. I could feel the reality of the bugs. I could tell every bug that was crawling everywhere around me, even though I couldn't see them. I could hear the trees whisper to me. The birds were singing and I knew their language. I experienced unconditional love. It opened in my heart and I just exploded. And then it all went away, and I've been really, really depressed ever since because I can't make it come back. Yeah. Where'd it go? Was it even there in the first place, or was I just hallucinating? Yeah. Spiritual expansion is a real tricky experience in this day and age. And there are so many different options to explore as how you're going to make yours happen. Some are better than others. Some are theories. Some are dogmas. Some are cults that will tell you, put your power over here, kiss my feet. I'll get you through. Run! Out the door, over the hill, way away. You don't need to do that. The only feet you need to kiss are your own. And if you can't bend over that far, that's okay. Through this course, we will learn the crash course in understanding how we are direct manifestations of Source and how we can awaken and enliven that direct connection to God. You don't need priests. You don't even need us. You don't need gurus. You don't need your mother, father, sister, brother. You don't need anybody to make a connection to God for you. You have it right now. You are a manifestation of God right now. What you do need is to remember how your biology works so you can turn on what needs to be turned on in the three-dimensional form to get the rest of your knowing back into your body. And that's what these courses are about. They're about teaching you that there's one person in the universe you need to turn to make your life better, to make your death better, to maybe throw death out the window altogether and decide to ascend instead. Check out immortal life. It's possible. It was a natural state for the human condition. The only one being in the universe you need to turn to is the fullness of your multidimensional self, what we call your inner Christos. And that doesn't matter what religion you are. Christos belongs to everybody, even atheists. Even they got one. Ants have one too. So it's like you don't have to consider yourself elitist or anything. Oh, I've got a Christos. So is everybody else. But what's special is learning about what that means, more than just a concept. Learning what you can do with your mind right now to begin the process of awakening that level of consciousness within your body. And it's not just a level of consciousness. It's a level of energy and power. The power of your inner Christos can bilocate. It can disappear at will and remanifest. when you're fully activated in your Christos imprint, you are not bound by the laws of space and time. You can move between different space-time locations. You can choose not to be in any space-time location, or you can choose to be in many at once. You can also choose to be in the one you're in and stand in your Christos power and radiate the healing potentials into the world around you. And right now, for the humans and the indigo children of the planet, that is a sacred commission that we are all being asked to remember. Right now, if anybody's noticed, it's getting a little weird out there in the world. If you watch TV at all, and like a lot of belief system teachers, oh, don't even watch TV. Well, I suggest do, because you might get a clue as to what's going on out there if you look at the propaganda programs that are running. Watch TV, but don't believe it, is what the thing is. You watch it, and you realize you're watching the manifestation and the unfoldment of a plan. Not your plan, not the Christos plan either, but a plan nonetheless, a plan that is going to affect the mass reality system on this planet, not just in America, but on a global level. In America, we're sitting here watching this very interesting series of events and series of talking heads on television that are convincing us why it's absolutely important to go and flatten Saddam Hussein. Good question is, why now? Why didn't we do it 10 years ago? I mean, all of a sudden it's important. What I really am surprised at is they didn't create a stronger link between the terrorist attacks and the desire to go get Saddam Hussein, because that would have had it all wrapped up with a nice yellow bow on it. We're moving toward a series of events that our generation has not seen. The older generations have seen similar events. People that have lived through World War I and World War II, people that have lived through the Korean War, and a little bit the Vietnam War. People that haven't been sheltered in a bubble of it can't happen to us, we're Americans. People who have experienced what goes with knowing when mass reality blows up in your face all around you, and no matter whether or not you want to be a part of it, you're stuck in it. Now, you can go around in a little bubble and say, I'm going to be above this and pretend I'm spiritual and I'm not going to acknowledge it exists. Good luck. See how far that will carry you. It'll carry you to a certain point, and then there'll be a rude awakening when reality crashes your bubble. But there is a way to walk through events on a mass level that become weird and not what you want them, holding your power and your peace, realizing you can make a difference, not by trying to fix things from the outside. Going out there and doing political demonstrations, anti-war demonstrations, raising hell here and there is not going to do anything except draw attention to you in a way that's going to cause you to be a little fire that needs to be extinguished by other forces who are creating these dramas in the first place. Do you want to waste your power that way? Do you want to just say, here, kick me? Well, if you want to do that, go get signs and demonstrate, you know. I mean, the greatest example of that are terrorists themselves. I'm going to die for my religion. Why? Why bother? Do you really think God cares? These people really think they're going to go to heaven after they blow their bodies up, particularly if they take out a bunch of people on the other side. This is where the freedom of belief comes in. The people that could actually do that to themselves and to other human beings have been so brainwashed into ideologies that promote hatred, that promote elitism. It takes a hell of a lot of ignorance and arrogance to go say, my God's better than your God, so I'm going to destroy you if you don't follow my God. But if you look at our recorded history, what did the Catholic Church do when it went into South America and devastated the Incas, or came into North America and devastated the Native Americans? The Protestant churches haven't been much better. What did the Egyptians do way before that when they conquered territories? You read our history books and it's laughable. They make it look like conquest was a good thing. Oh yeah, and then they went in there and they took over that and they made this wonderful thing happen. Excuse me, they stole it. Nobody seems to recognize that. There is a long history on this planet of twisted behavior, violent behavior, irresponsible behavior that gives people permission by promoting false ideologies of elitism and arrogance, gives people permission to destroy sacred things, the planet, each other, animals, trees. What's wrong with this picture? If we think about the concept of Christ consciousness, or even elated consciousness, if you weren't raised Christian so you don't relate to the word Christ, what might that mean? In our world, we hear stories of utopian worlds. Once upon a time, there existed a place. Maybe it was called Atlantis. Maybe it was called Lemuria. Maybe it was called something else. But we have had legends forever here about utopian civilizations where there was no war, there was no sickness, no disease, no fighting, no lack, no death. Are these just pipe dreams that humans create for themselves because they're so devastated with the reality of their true condition, which is death and sickness? This is what science and psychology will tell us. It will tell us that to entertain the thought of the utopian vision is just an escapist mentality. The realists face the fact that we came out of apes or something like that. We have no purpose for being. We have a finite lifespan and then we die. And that's it. So we better just accept the facts. What they don't tell you is that's their set of facts built on a set of theories, which are guesses, because they don't know either. I suggest guess different. You have a right to choose what theories you want to embrace. For the people who are new to this work, in this workshop, if you need to for now, if the ideas seem kind of like, out there when we start working with symbol codes and sacred sounds and DNA templates and things you might not have ever heard of, remember, you can just consider it a theory for now. But the people who've come to know this work and the people who've come to live this work know it's much more than a theory. We have felt the realities of DNA activation in our bodies. And sometimes it feels like menopause, even if you're a man. We have felt the progressive cycling of expansions of consciousness. We have watched the fine art of synchronicities appearing in our lives, where it seems like somebody else up there has your appointment book because things just fall together in an order you never could have figured out all by yourself. Some of us have more direct things, like you walk by computers and they fry and they crash, or you go under street lights and they turn out spontaneously. There's a lot of little signs. But there's a thing that people who have stayed with the work tend to find, and what keeps them coming back, is there's a sense of freedom, and for once a promise that there is something better, that they're not powerless. You don't have to beg and grovel before some priest who's going to be your interface to some God who's so mean that he put you down here in the first place to suffer. If you don't call your God Jehovah, you're going to hell. What is this guy's problem? I mean, personally, if that was the only God in the universe, I think I'd just say, no thank you, I'll just be finite. Because if I had to ascend to deal with that, I'd rather die. Think about it. Would you want to live, if the promise of ascension is that you have to bow down to some creator God in the sky who's going to run you around like a puppet, and if you don't kiss his butt, he's going to get mad and put you in the fire and brimstone? Do you really want to live with this from now until eternity? I think finite existence probably looks pretty good compared to that. At least you have fun while you're here, But that isn't what the true God source is. That is a lie that has been told. It's a blasphemy, the worst blasphemy possible about the truth and the reality of God. But because God is all-loving and all-forgiving, God doesn't get mad because that blasphemy has been created. But what God does is feel every bit of pain that its parts down here, us, feel because of that misinterpretation. So there is a desire within the heart and mind of God that the parts of itself that are lost here in the hologram begin to remember the truth of its nature. And that truth opens up inside of you. And it is a truth that if you work with what you've got to work with, and you've got to start where you are, you may have a karmic imprint as big as the Mississippi River. And you may have to clear that karmic imprint. Now, karmic imprint isn't something you have to be Hindu to have. Christians have it too, and so do Muslims, and so do ants. The karmic imprint isn't a conceptual mumbo-jumbo either, that it can take you from now until eternity to try to unravel this little ball of thread that somewhere long ago you made a mistake and now it's coming back to haunt you over and over. When we teach about karma, we teach it as an energy form that manifests in your DNA chemically. It messes up your chemicals, which messes up your ability to hold your consciousness in your body the way it was meant to be. We teach also about the reality of simultaneous time, which means other space-time fields that exist right now, right here, in the same space, but they have a different angular rotation of particle spin, which means they appear invisible to us and we appear invisible to them. Where's your karma coming from? You have other selves in those other space-times. How do you clear your karmic imprint? You learn about your anatomy. You don't have to go to a guru or a swami who's going to say, I absolve you of your karma. What you need to do is understand it as an energy form and realize it's just another thing. It's like the circuitry in the body needs to be brought back to its original order. You don't have to spend 20 years analyzing your karmic manifestations, because at this point, there's not time to do that. We are about to enter a big party on a mass level. Now, some people consider it a fun party. Other people would really rather do without the party, but it's going to come anyway. We are headed for a series of events between now and 2012 that are probably going to blow all of our minds, including mine. Oh my God, that's what it looks like when it manifests. We are preparing for an event of a possibly subtle nature that's going to happen on May 27th of 2003. It's an event of a very sacred nature, for a gift is coming here. A gift and a curse simultaneously, and they are two different things. The curse is coming, and the gift is coming from God behind it. You could call it a gift of love. By the end of this workshop, you'll know what I mean when I'm talking about that, because we'll explain to you what it is, and boy, is there detail. So we will give you the greatest summary of the detail that we can without overwhelming you with the detail. People who know this work, who have done the Cathara Healing Program, and then the Planetary Templar Stewardship Initiative Program, and the Voyager series books, and the Tangible Structure of the Soul, they've seen the level of detail. We don't talk about things off the cuff without knowing what we're talking about. And that's one thing me, with my Virgo imprint, wouldn't allow. I'm not going to teach it if I don't know exactly how it works, So the detail is there. But right now, what's most important, I ask myself, and Az asked himself, what can we do that is most important? We're aware of a certain set of events that are going to be taking place in the next few months and few years. We're aware that we need 20 years to walk people through the amount of detail to really get you to fully understand every part of the Emerald Covenant teachings. But you know what? There isn't 20 years to do that right now before action needs to be taken if you're going to maintain your empowered stance within the mass drama. So we ask the guardians, and we ask our own Christos self, how can we best serve each audience of people that come to us? And each one of you has a different reason why you're here. Each one of you has a different level of DNA activation right now, different level of karmic clearing that needs to be done, different level of understanding that needs to open. How can we best serve you? The one big answer to that is give you the techniques. Because if you work with the techniques, even though you might not be exactly sure, why am I doing this? We'll tell you why, we'll explain why, and it'll be in the writing. But if it doesn't stick up here, work with the techniques. Eventually, that'll all stick, because the techniques will open up in your body the ability to hold the higher consciousness that will give you the understanding of the detail as you go along. There may come a time when Az and I aren't here anymore at all, where Mac isn't here either. There may come a time when we can't bring through in writing the teachings to make it easy for people to, at least there's something you can read to try to learn it. So the most important thing that we could give you are the techniques that will allow you to begin to be your own guide. We've always tried to turn people back to their inner self and to give you the technologies that will help you to do that. But it's going to be very, very important in the next number of months and years that you realize there's only one person you need to turn to for your expert. You need to become your own expert. You need to find that within yourself. And if we can help by the stories we tell and the knowledge we share and the techniques we give, that you can begin to find the beginning of that power within yourself, we know we have served you to the best that we can. There may be events in the next few years that are not pleasant. And we can go around saying, well, my beliefs create my reality, and I refuse to believe anything negative is going to happen, therefore it won't. See how far that one gets you. Meanwhile, you might want to turn on the TV and watch President Bush once in a while. Watch Tony Blair over in England. Watch what they're going to say to the Canadian guy up there. Watch what they're going to do with the coalition. And really think, do you really think if you ignore this, it's going to go away? Did World War I go away? Did World War II go away? They didn't go away. They affected people, everyday people. And even if you're not directly involved in those kind of political dramas, politics affects economics. Economics affects everybody on this planet, because right now all of us, our survival is locked into a system that's built upon an anti-Christos principle of a few holding the power of the many and exploiting the power of the many, allowing people just enough freedom to keep them behaving, so they keep going to work, keep buying stuff, keep the wheels turning in the system. If things go into a situation where a progressive war drama unfolds on this planet in the next few years, you're better off knowing that it will affect you as a human being, unless you're going to go live in a paper bag someplace. But good luck, because everywhere is owned by somebody, if you haven't noticed. Where are you going to put that paper bag where somebody's not going to kick you off it, put you in jail as a vagrant? The options that used to be there, going out and hiding out in the country, aren't there anymore. Just like you can't get away with hitchhiking across country anymore like you could in the 60s. Everything was free and love then. It isn't anymore. There's no place you can hide on this planet anymore. So, the idea of spiritual development can become a reality that gives you power to say, yep, I see the mess coming. I do. But I'm not afraid of it, because I know how to handle myself within it. And whatever the hologram out there throws at me, I know I have the power to move through it. It's like learning to dance through a minefield, a land minefield, where you don't step on the mines, and you somehow manage to get to the other side, while people are blowing up left and right behind you. You can learn to hold your spiritual integrity and your peace, and possibly even your bank account, in a situation that evolves into a mass drama of war. Because right now, there's a very strong probability that that's where America is moving the world. It's not just America's fault. You can't blame President Bush alone. There's a lot more forces that work behind this. In the last day of our workshop, we'll explore what those forces are and what agendas are actually beginning to manifest on this planet. Because what we see before our eyes and the propaganda that we see on television is just the symptom. It's not the cause. The cause is something else that's unseen. And we'll explore what that cause is. And once you know what the cause is, you have a chance of knowing what to do with yourself in relation to it. But if you're just looking at the symptom, you're going to feel powerless, because you're not going to understand what needs to be done to fix things. The utopian vision, it's worth holding on to that right now. But it's also worth holding on to it with maturity, where we realize utopia has to start inside before you will ever see it outside. The utopian vision had much to it. It had more to do with beings being fully awakened as the truth of what they are than it had to do with everybody shaking hands and giving each other hugs and loving each other. That was there too. Economic structures weren't there in the utopian vision. Money wasn't a reality in the utopian vision. It wasn't needed. No one was on the outside in the utopian vision, because love was unconditional. Every plant, every ant, every rock, every tree, every person, every species from this planet and others was honored and loved equally. The utopian vision can come back, but it will come back here to Earth piece by piece. We're in the process of building, rebuilding, what was known as heaven on earth. That's not going to be rebuilt by us going out there and trying to get rid of all the things that seem to be the other that's creating the mess. It's going to come from healing what's in ourselves that keeps allowing us to contribute somehow, without even knowing how, to the manifestation of a hologram of conflict and war. Our power is inside. And through the Dance Floor program, hopefully, you will find it fun, because it actually is fun. In fact, it gets downright silly sometimes. You see a bunch of people spinning around in circles, but there's a reason for it. What you don't see, though, by the way, I've got to point this out, what you don't usually see in our workshops is this. Just in case anybody is wondering what those guys are doing with these on their head. I didn't do that. But I appreciate the loving sentiment involved. Anybody not see the Signs movie? All right. The people who haven't seen the movie Signs may be sitting there wondering, what do they do in these workshops? There's people sitting there with tin foil on their head. All right. This doesn't come out of our workshops, but it's a very funny takeoff on something we do teach about, which is learning how to protect your bioenergetic field from what's called psychotronic sonic pulses that are used through things like the HARP mechanism and things that the government has and things. Well, in the movie Signs, there was and personally, I think the movie was pretty awful. It just really bottomed out. The concept was good, but they killed it somewhere in the process. But there was a really neat scene. This is one of my favorite scenes. That's why I was chuckling when you guys came in with those. I thought that was one of the most brilliant spots in the whole movie, where there was these little kids that were aware that they were receiving signs or signals from some alien beings that were leaving crop circles out in their cornfield. And the kids had read in a book that if you made these things out of tin foil on your head, it would protect you from the mind control that they would try to telepath at you, that the nasty visitors would try to telepath at you. So they made these little tinfoil things, and they're all sitting there on their couch, protected. And I thought that was the funniest scene, because it's well, they at least got the concept of there is stuff messing with our heads, but tinfoil isn't going to do it. But I still think that was great. That was a great joke. So I wanted to explain that for the people who might be new to the work and who didn't see the movie Signs, who wonder, what? No, it's one of those weird, wacky E.T. group peoples, right? Next thing they'll be driving around in spaceship cars, right? No, we don't do that stuff. But it was a good pun for those who are aware of the movie. Personally, I'll just activate my fields and not worry about the hat. What we teach in the Dance Floor program, as we're teaching spiritual integration, the truth of spiritual integration and how you do it, you also get a fringe benefit of creating biofield protection, which is creating DNA protection. DNA, on the chemical level, is extremely sensitive to magnetic fields on the planet. Science knows this already, too. When there are malfunctions or unexpected adjustments in the magnetic fields of the planet, it affects the DNA of all life forms on this planet. That is how we got in this predicament in the first place. 25,500 BC, there were a certain set of magnetic adjustments artificially made in the magnetic fields on this planet that began a series of DNA degradations that left us without memory, that left us without our ability of telepathy. It left us without our ability to move objects with our minds, telekinesis. It left us with the ability to die instead of ascend. It changed the chemical and hormonal natures of our bodies, so they began to malfunction and kill themselves by release of a death hormone that begins to activate in the human body chemically at the age of 12 in both male and female. This was done through altering the magnetic fields on the planet. We'll get into the who did that later for those who don't know, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on it right now. If you want to know the who, you can read Voyager's series books. You can read the Planetary Templar Stewardship Initiative course book. We've covered all of that. But what's important to realize is that the things that we teach, that you'll learn here, you're going to get the crash course, and what's most important, which is not convincing your ego why you should bother. It's once you've convinced your ego, that's your job. We give you enough material, you can convince your own ego. It's not our job to prove anything to you. We don't have to. We're too darn busy. Proof is the burden of the beholder. You can choose to not believe us. It doesn't. Who's hurting? It doesn't do anything to us. But if you give yourself the chance to explore the technologies, which are fun, the technologies are fun. It has to do with symbol codes, pretty little symbols, pictures, that are actually mathematical codes that directly affect, through the optical pineal connection, the DNA template, to begin to open and reawaken the dormant junk DNA, to begin to put your body back together, because we've been cut up in little pieces inside of ourselves chemically for so long. We are in the process of a most wonderful thing. It's called regenesis of a race. We are being offered the opportunity to regenerate what it once meant to be a human being. Human beings were angelic beings. They were multidimensional beings who had full mastery over 12 dimensions of reality. They could move at will back and forth between different matter density levels, between different planets, stars, and space-time systems. They were here on a sacred commission of helping this particular planet that was in crisis to heal, So it could become, again, what is called an ascension planet. Ascension is a big, lofty spiritual word that a lot of people like to throw around out there like a hot dog on a string in front of a dog. They dangle it before you. Ascension, yeah, I want to do that. It's good, right? It's like that's how you get out of here, right? Well, they don't tell you what the heck it is. Well, we'll tell you what it is. We'll explain to you. And to tell you what ascension is, you need to understand the basic structure of multidimensional reality, the context of which existence and ascension take place. That has to do with understanding the core structure of stargates as they operate within our universe. This is what the Dance for programs will teach you. In Dance for Life program, which is the easy one, the beginning one, we learn about Merkaba mechanics in relation to our bodies and our DNA template. We learn how to begin using what are called vector codes, which are very secret mathematical programs that were once common knowledge. They weren't secret at all before we got mutated down here. But these are very particular mathematical programs that have sounds that go with them, pictures with sounds, that if you use them and run them in the body in the right way, which means you need to know where your chakras are and things like that, you can begin to activate that DNA, which activates the corresponding Merkaba field. Now, for people who don't know what the word Merkaba means, it's simply a word that refers to the two spirals of counter-rotating energy, electromagnetic energy, that move around the body. Merkaba fields actually breathe energy into and out of manifestation, energy and consciousness. Everything in existence has a Merkaba field. It is what brings things from the state of non-manifestation into the state of manifestation and then out again. Now, on a planetary level, our Merkaba, planetary Merkaba, has been messed up since 25,500 BC, which has created a reciprocal mess-up of the personal Merkabas of every species on this planet, including ours. The Merkaba mutation goes hand in hand with the DNA mutation. They're all connected. So you're going to learn in Dance for Life where these pieces basically fit together, so you know where your Merkaba and your DNA fit together, and you know what to do to begin healing them. It's fun because one of the things we learn is a technique that's called a salutation, where you learn to use, literally, the power in your body and of your body to manually reset your Merkaba to its proper spin the way it's supposed to be spinning, which will help the chemicals in your DNA to begin to realign the way they're supposed to be. Before you will see chemical results in the DNA template has to be changed first. The template is a pattern of scalar waves, which are light and sound waves, standing columnar light and sound waves that flash off and on but stay in a fixed position, that form the template upon which your matter body is built, the template that your consciousness uses to anchor itself into three-dimensional manifestation. Our templates are called our shields. This is the beginning of the teaching of the ancient science of the shields, the matter templates, the blueprints behind matter. It is divine blueprint science. So we begin the personal stuff. We start to play with our Merkabas in a pretty easy, straightforward way. When we get to the Dance for Love program, we get into something a little broader. We learn about something called the Eka maps of the God world gates. We learn about stargates. What the heck's a stargate? We learn what the heck a stargate is, where they're located, how they function, and then we look at the maps of how they connect to each other. And through that, we begin to see the facts of the structure, of the template of cosmic creation. It is not guesswork. God did not guess it would have a theory to make creation happen. There was a plan, there was a principle, there was an idea, an intention, and there was a format that was used. Do you think computers would work if there wasn't a mathematical program and a format that laid out how energy was supposed to interact with itself in order to create certain effects? There is a template and a program that three-dimensional holograms, all of them, this one and many other universes, all follow in order to have consciousness be able to enter them and experience manifestation and the experience of seeming to be separate from the source, the one source we all came from, is called God. So we will learn about not just the fact that this template of existence exists. We will begin to learn about stargates and how they connect to other sets of stargates, and how there is something literally called the stairway to heaven. We will learn where we are on that stairway and what needs to be done with our DNA, so we can begin to climb from where we are to what we consider not only heavens, but what are called the God worlds. Heavens are the lower things. Right now we're stuck on earth, or so it seems to be. At least our DNA has convinced us that we're stuck on earth. Heavens are the first step, but the God worlds are the eternal worlds where true ascended masters live. But true ascended masters don't need to go around and wear a badge on their back that says, I'm an ascended master, hi, worship me. All right? Whenever you see teachings out there that have, oh, Lord this and Lord that is an ascended masters don't call themselves lords. That's an ego trip. There's a whole bunch of false ascended masters running around out there right now in the New Age movement, teaching people how to activate distortions in the DNA template to make absolutely sure you will not be able to activate your full original Christos template. With a little wisdom, you can look at them and laugh and say, nah, sorry, I might have bought that when I lived in Atlantis, but I'm not going to do it this time. I learned from my lesson. Thank you for the lesson, you petty tyrant. And you can learn to move with love through people who are moving with a lot less than that. There are no enemies on this planet. We have no enemies if we are in the Christos consciousness. However, we are very stupid if we think that there aren't others out there that consider us their enemies just because we don't buy into their dogmas. If we think that we can achieve Christos love and then make the inadvertent mistake of thinking everything else operates that way too, we have a whole set of very difficult lessons we're going to teach ourselves about tough love, about being able to love, but also love yourself as a face of God, as well as other beings, enough that you will not allow yourself to be harmed or compromised under the guise of the words, I love you. Love is an action, not just lip service. There's a lot of lip service to love going on out there. Oh, I love you. You got to do this for me. Why? But I don't want to. It doesn't feel right to me. Oh, but if you really loved me, you would. Is that love? Or is that manipulation? You don't want my love, you want my power. You're trying to make me do something I don't want to do. We have been conned on this planet into using the word love to label something that is not love at all. Power stealing. Mothers do it to kids, and they don't realize they're doing it usually. Lovers do it to each other. Siblings do it to each other. Governments do it to each other. Love means, its true meaning, is that I will love you enough and myself enough to allow me to be exactly what I am. And if that's something other than what you wish I was, that might sadden me, but it's not going to change the fact that I need to be who I am. It also means that even though I might not like what you're doing or who you're being, I will love you enough to respect your right of free will, to respect the God that lives within you, even if I disagree. I will intervene if I see you hurting yourself, but to a point. I will respect your boundaries of free will choice, and I will let go if need be. That is one of the hardest forms of love to learn. A lot of us try to hold on to other people or other things and call it love, because what we're actually trying to do is hide from ourselves the fact that we're afraid. That on our own we feel worthless, useless, totally not worth anything. What am I here for? We tend to draw other people to ourselves to validate our right to be, to validate the fact that we're blessed because we forgot we were blessed. As long as somebody's saying, oh, I love you, I think you're great, you go, yeah, I'm good, yeah, I feel good, yeah, you feel good about yourself, but as soon as they go away, and there's nobody there, no audience, nobody to say, hey, I think you're great, then you're left with you. What do? Run out to find the next boyfriend, the next something to fill the void? Or do you realize there is no void? Before you can experience the quality of genuine love, you must be the quality of genuine love. That means the first thing you must learn to love is you. And if you have a program running in your subconscious or half-conscious mind that's saying, I'm this or that, or I'm not good enough, or I'm all this stuff, and only if I get this far, oh, well, if I do this, I'll be good, I'll be lovable, I'll be worthwhile. If you cannot live peacefully alone with yourself, there's something you're trying to hide. There's a part of you that's hurting, that doesn't feel it's lovable or worthwhile. We've been fed stuff from our parents who didn't know any better, Ever since we were in the womb, all sorts of negative stuff. You're this, you're that, you're bad, you shouldn't have done that, bad girl, bad boy. Oh, I'm bad, I'm bad, I'm bad, I'm bad. You just want to crawl under something, or you rebel. You get so sick of hearing how bad you are, you're going to say, oh, darn it, I'm good. I'm real good. I'm arrogant as all hell because I don't have to believe what you told me that I'm bad. People that are arrogant are doing a superiority complex thing. It's a compensation pattern for the fact that deep inside they feel utterly pathetic and worthless. So badly that they cannot even allow themselves to recognize that. So when you see arrogant people or arrogant races, because there are races that embody arrogance as a general rule, realize somewhere deep inside their souls there is such a pain of feeling pathetic and non-blessed that they actually had to create a huge pseudo-persona to convince themselves that they were something and that they were worth living. If you begin to realize you have within you the Christos potential, it's right there, it's always been there with you, you just forgot it. Every being, be it large or small, intelligent, brilliant, or stupid, every being has a purpose, has a reason in this universe. It is blessed in the fact that it exists, and every being is made of the units of the consciousness of God, and all things exist within the consciousness of God. You cannot be separate from God. So even the most evil-seeming things or beings, they have a purpose. Usually it's a learning purpose. It's a teaching purpose. They teach other beings about love, about how to handle love and how to handle power. But the most evil being lives with a state of forgiveness. But there is also a state of consequence that the manifestation framework itself, reality itself, implies. If you abuse too much the laws of nature upon which the eternal life system was created, the energy of the laws of nature will itself teach you not to do that anymore. We will learn at the end of this workshop about beings who have made choices out of distortions of consciousness, where they forgot their connection to the wholeness, they forgot their love of each other, and they gave themselves the permission to abuse other life forms and to abuse the laws of nature and energy. They are, at this point in time, facing their judgment day. Not by us. We're not judging them. Even God's not judging them. It's like finally getting the consequence of the actions that you put forth. It's simply a consequence in energy. But this consequence in energy that certain groups of beings on this planet and in other places near this planet are going to experience within the next few years on this planet will directly affect us. This is a time when, let's say, the great cosmic wheels of time that spin like the magic gears on a massive clock are coming around full circle. There's a new cycle on the universal level beginning. Not a small planetary cycle, not even a little bit bigger solar system cycle, or even a galactic cycle. This is a universal cycle, big one. This is when the pendulum that has swung all the way to the degree of negative that can be tolerated by the structure, the mechanical structures, or the energetic structures that allow eternal life to continue. The pendulum has swung all the way, and it is time for the backswing now. There are two paths, two primary paths of evolution that we are in the process of watching unfold on our planet. We will have a choice as to which path we're going to be on. And at least this time, nobody can say, nobody told us, right? We've used that one before. And it was, well, I didn't understand. I shouldn't take the fire sword initiation. I didn't know that was going to do that to me. We'll find out what the fire sword initiation is and why you don't want to do it unless you want to become what's called Metatronic. Our energy has been separated and polarized. And there's a lot of teachings out there that say, oh, the ego's to blame. The ego's a bad, negative thing. Kill the ego and you'll be fine. That's like kill your three-dimensional mind and you'll be fine. In other words, have a lobotomy and you won't have a problem. The ego is not a negative thing, but it can adopt negative patterns if it doesn't know what else to do with itself. We're going to learn about the real cause of that duality program, and it's called the shadow body. And these are the beginning of the freedom teachings, because if you realize you have a part of your anatomy that you drag around with you every day that literally has a life of its own and that somebody else is borrowing, that's using your energy and sucking your life force right out of your cells, And if you learn where it is, what it is, how it got there, and what you can do to make it go away, that's power. We've been given in the Bermuda workshop, which is the contact course, one of the most powerful techniques that we have been given thus far. And boy, some of these are powerful. I mean, you can like get your body temperature up to about 104 degrees and like be like a little radiator with even the other techniques. This one is a technique. We call it Technique 8 of the contact course. They gave us up to 7 in the contact course. But Technique 8 is a very special one that we will get to by the last day. It is the beginning where all the stuff you might have had to work through to get to the point where you could do Technique 8, once you get there, you don't have to do the rest anymore. That means you don't have to do Maharic Seal anymore because it'll stay activated. It means you don't have to do a little bit of the shadow healing stuff because it'll be on autopilot. And it means that by the time we get to the Dance for Freedom course in France, we're going to be able to use composite VECA codes with Technique 8 to create massive activations. And what the end of these activations will create is called activation of the sacred flame body, the flame of Amareya. Amareya is a word that means divine unconditional love. It is a frequency, and it is a power, and it is a consciousness within ourselves. It is a consciousness and a frequency and a power that will allow our biofields to become walking portals. We will be able to progressively get ourselves to the point where we could walk through a stargate. Because right now, if we try walking through stargates, we're going to spontaneously combust because our DNA can't handle the frequency. Our chemicals can't react fast enough to make the changes necessary, the frequency changes, to move through a stargate. When we begin to use the techniques that are being given now, they are very, very fast activations. Technically, it should have been 10 years before they gave us these. There's a reason why they're giving them to us now. Let's say the timeline has been accelerated a bit. There are frequencies that are going to be coming through this planet as of May 27, 2003, that you're going to need more than tinfoil hats to counteract. There is a major gift coming on that day as well. This gift has to do with something called the Ark Project. And don't think Noah. Well, you could think Noah, but not big brown barges. Think electrical arcs. Arcs of energy. You know how electricity arcs. Well, there are some very powerful energies coming to the planet on the 27th of May. We're going to be in Greece for that, by the way, for anybody who's coming with us for the trips. Paxos, Greece, which is called Q-Site 7. It's the closest and most pure grid space that opens directly into what's called Inner Earth. We're going to learn about Inner Earth for the people who are new to this program. You're going to learn what Inner Earth is. Is that something you dig and find? No, you don't dig and find it. It's something you go down through caverns in the Earth to find a particular place that's called Stargate 3. And you take Stargate 3, and if your DNA can handle it, you can shift angular rotation of particle spin, go through a couple other stargates, and get to a place called the Inner Ecosystem. One of the planets in the Inner Ecosystem, which is a whole universal structure, is a planet that is the counterpart of Earth. That is where the legends, the old legends of Inner Earth or Agartha, come from. There's a lot more than just Agartha there. But we are being prepared to activate our flame bodies because there may come a time before too long when it's important that at least a small contingent of people has the ability to come through to Inner Earth to be trained in evacuation procedures, just in case. There are things happening on this planet in frequency that are much bigger than the cover stories of propaganda that we're going to see distracting us before our faces in the political arena. The frequency changes are the big changes. And those changes are going to create two separate reality fields that move away from each other. Two versions of this hologram we call Earth. And it is up to us to choose what one we want to be on. One goes up, one goes down. Where does it go down to? It goes down to what's called a black hole imploding matrix. We'll learn what that is, where it is, what that has to do with our shadow bodies, and why it's in our best interest to possibly choose different this time around while we still have the choice. I have a feeling there's many surprises in the next few years for all of us, as and I included. We keep asking them, what's this going to look like on the outside? Right? Like, is it going to be peaceful? Or is it going... There's a frequency war happening in the grids right now, in the planetary grids. Frequencies fighting with each other. What this creates is grid instabilities. What it would create if the guardian races weren't intervening is pole shift, which would mean bye-bye, clean slate. We wouldn't be here to worry about it, so you might as well have like those comet coming parties and stuff. Throw your credit, max out your credit cards and go do that, all that fun stuff. Let's party, the world's ending. But fortunately for us, the guardians and many, many races of guardians, not just the Eoni, they've been watching this. This has been a problem that's progressed in this time matrix for 250 billion years. This is the end of a journey that started then. We're not going to get away with it that easy. We don't just go say, okay, so we get wiped out, let's go party. It's not going to be that easy. We're not going to see quite that kind of transition. There's going to be a transition that has to do with progressive. It's almost like, I keep saying to them, if I were a horse and I broke all of my legs, just shoot me and get it over with. Instead of just like making me limp and crawl my way back to the stable and hopefully that will help me, just get it over with. There's going to be a slow progression of things that you really would rather do without. However, that gives us time. That gives us time to make changes in our own consciousness and biology that will allow us to do something that humans have not been able to do on this planet since 25,500 BC. Then a few of them could do it. But the majority of humans couldn't do this since 208,216 BC. Long time. We are rekindling the hope, the vision, and the dream, and the potentiality of the race called the human race. That potentiality means a physical body can be taken through a physical stargate and end up somewhere else. A physical body that is capable of doing that is a self-healing entity. It can transmute and create immunity to any disease. It can heal and even regenerate any part of itself that is missing, any part of itself that is diseased. It can age regress its body back to its most favorite form. It can even change its body if it doesn't want that one. We were breatharians once upon a time. We didn't eat. What is eating? Do you ever ask yourself what eating is? Think about it. I mean, right now we have it down to an art of denial. Just make sure it looks pretty on the plate and smells good with the most wonderful herbs. Doesn't change the fact that it used to be alive and you're sucking energy off it to keep yourself sustained right now. What does it sound like? A vampire that sucks the life force out of something else in order to sustain itself. Why? Because it can't pull in its own energy from the perpetual life system. That is not a natural condition for a human body. We will evolve, and not overnight, back into our breatharian state. By that time, we will evolve out of having stomachs. We'll go through periods of probably hundreds of years where our tummies get smaller and smaller and smaller. And so do the other things we don't need anymore, because we're not just going to go bang. Right now, if you decide, I'm going to be a breatharian because I realize I'm being a vampire when I eat, you're just going to starve yourself to death. You'll get really, really, really skinny and feel really, really, really weak, and your blood will become anemic, and you won't be able to hold enough frequency in your body to get it through a stargate anyway. There's what's called the bridge zone. The bridge zone is a bridge zone project. It has to do with something happening on the planetary level, also on the galactic level, and also on the very personal level. It's a bridge zone of frequency that will give our DNA templates, our biologies, and, thank God, our minds, the opportunity to evolve slowly into what it used to mean to be human. So the things that we still build our life around, the little things that give us pleasure and security and make us feel like we're not scared to death because the universe is too big for us to ever deal with, we can have those. We don't have to give up all our attachments to our stuff right now. Some stuff you can actually take with you in the transitions that are coming. You can actually, if you become a walking portal, take lots of stuff with you. Where are you going? To the bridge zone. What's this going to look like? Ought to be interesting. We're going to explore this in more detail on the last day of the workshop. What I want to get you through first is understanding your own biology enough to understand how to use your Merkaba field and your DNA template to heal your body and your consciousness. Then we'll get on to the more lofty expectations of ascension and the potentialities. Not everybody's going to be able to do it this time in their body. But what you can guarantee yourself is that you will have the ability, even if you don't have enough time to get your whole body through a stargate, that when it's time for you to naturally depart your physical form, you will be guaranteeing yourself eternal life in the good side of town. I mean the good side of town, because there are good sides and bad sides of the tracks when it comes to being in the multidimensional spectrum. There have been things happening here since 25,500 BC that when people die, the natural thing that's supposed to happen doesn't. What's supposed to happen when you die is your consciousness is supposed to raise in vibration while your body drops in vibration. When your body drops in vibration, it begins to decompose and go back into the dust to go back to the elementals that it belonged with. It's a part of your consciousness that goes back to elemental expression, while the other part that you know is you takes a ride in your D4 astral body up into D5, which is your soul body. And from there, it would have another experience of either reincarnation or using the same body form in its soul body in an etheric, semi-etheric matter density level. Now, because of the mutation that's taking place on this planet in the DNA that's caused by distortions in the magnetic fields on the planet, the magnetosphere of the planet is twisted. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. Because of that, consciousness cannot come out and do a vertical ascent when it leaves the body. This is why our astral projection abilities are all messed up. This is why our dream reality is all messed up. And if we're lucky, we get pieces coming back. And if we're not lucky, we actually get full sequences coming back. When we went for a tour of the black hole, we're going to find out what's actually happening to our consciousness while it's in body, while you're doing things like dreaming or projecting, and what that means in relation to if your body, the death transition, which is called the bardo. There's a natural way to die if you're going to drop a body. That wasn't the natural way for humans to begin with. The natural way was to ascend a body, which means take it all with you and don't leave any dust. It's kind of like cleaning up after yourself. We're going to find out what mechanisms in our anatomy are stopping us from being able to have the freedom of consciousness and biology that was our original birthright. The fact that we don't have our original gift and our original birthright is not only denying us the experience of joy in being, it is preventing us from fulfilling our original human creation contract. The human creation contract, we weren't just created haphazard. Oh, let's try that. Let's see, give it 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, maybe a belly button. Yeah, let's try that. We were just created because God was playing with clay and decided that might look cool. We were created very specifically and meticulously to serve a very, very special role. We were created, human beings were created, humans and indigos were created as the guardians of this 15-dimensional universal time matrix. We were given the commission and the trust to protect and heal the stargates and the planetary and galactic systems in this universe that had been damaged. It's a trust we were fully capable of fulfilling. And in our memory banks, in that DNA that's turned off, is the memory of the contract that each one of us held, why we came here, what role we agreed to play in this space and time. Each one of you have a divine purpose, and don't let anybody ever tell you any different. If you're part of a religion that the priest says, oh, you have to listen to me, it's like, excuse me, who gave you your creation contract? Who are you to tell me what mine is? Because you know what? No priest is going to tell you what your creation contract is. No guru is going to. The only voice you can hear that whispered from is the voice of your own inner Christos self, that inner part of yourself that is directly connected to Source, always was, always will be. You are your own guardian. But that can be very scary if you don't remember the rest of where yourself is. So you will learn your anatomy. You will learn where your soul level is, where your oversoul level is, where your avatar level is, where your rishi level is, and where your ascended master level is. And many of you will find you have commissions to activate fully as either rishi, not just avatars, rishi or higher, as far as frequency, and so ascendant masters, true ascendant masters. You will find your creation contracts, why you came here, what difference you can make on the planet. And you will find a magic trick of manifestation. If you want for something, if you want more money, if you want a house, want a car, want love, want. The first thing you ask is, what can I give? When you focus on service, the rest of your wants will be more quickly manifested. When you focus on, I need, I want, You are repeatedly reminding yourself, using your creative power to create the condition of not having. But if you say, I know, I will have whatever it is I want or need, what can I do to serve? Who can I help? What part of the planet can I help? What can I do? Not just to give lip service to it or to make myself feel good because I'm giving to charity, but what really can I do? This being with this unique DNA, it's like nobody else is on the planet. It might be similar to my parents, but you carry in your DNA something completely different than anybody else will. Every piece of DNA is unique. It's here for a reason. It has a sacred mission. When you find your sacred mission, it may challenge you. I dropped out of college because I had a speaker class. I got an A on my written speech. Then I had to get up and present it in front of the class. Couldn't do it. Terrified of speaking. I spent most of my early life not talking to anybody. I was very shy and very quiet. The thought of being a verbal speaker terrified me. So when I found my fullness and understanding who I was and what my job was, I said, can I quit now? Let me run. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to. It forced me into growing. I'm glad it did, because I'm a lot more sociable now than I used to be. The first time I got out to actually speak, the only thing I could do was say, all right, Source, all right, universe, and my Christos self, I'll just show up like you told me. I just showed up. And I trusted that my spirit, my inner Christos, knew why it was there and knew what it had to give. And all I cared about and focused on was, how can I serve them? It didn't matter to me if 3 people or 300 came in the audience. My job was to serve them as best as I could, whatever that meant. And I have been amazed at watching myself grow and get over that fear of exposure, because that's what it was. Many indigos carry a fear of exposure, because in the good old days, they used to chop our heads off and put them on stakes and stuff, because we spoke these things. We have more freedom now in this time. So when we move into the workshop, there will be fun times and fun things to do, and some things to do if you haven't been doing them. You're like, oh God, this is embarrassing. I'm going to get up and stand and spin. Well, if you want to get your Merkaba torquing the right way, you'll try it. It's actually fun. I really wish I could take a video, but it doesn't work in Inner Earth. If you could see what it looks like to see the Iani Master Races run their Inner Earth Planetary Templar. You have hundreds and hundreds of people standing in what's called a rainbow round table configuration, very specific geometrical layout of where the bodies are positioned. And in absolutely perfect synchronization with no wobble whatsoever, they go through what are called the Sariyas, which you will learn in the dance floor programs. These are movements done while spinning that create standing pillars of sound that exist and stay and sustain the grid areas long after the bodies move out from under them. They look like a cosmic dance troupe, and they sing the most beautiful tones in the first original auditory language, which was the Elohai language of Dimension 12. It was the first outside expressed language. There's 144 letters to that alphabet, 144 letters that are calibrated right into our DNA templates. So when you start working with the Dance 4 program, you might feel a little silly as you're trying to figure out how to get coordinated enough. I'm supposed to do what while I spin? First you learn the tones, then you learn to spin, then you learn to put tones and spinning together. Then come the Sariyas, which most of us, some people that have been following the work are better at it than Az and I are, because we haven't had time to keep doing them because we're getting the next level of information translated, so the next part of the program can come through. So there's probably some of you out there that could demonstrate them better than we could. But you will learn how to do these things. And the idea is to learn it with a sense of fun and a sense of play, but also a recognition that this is a divine technology. It's a divine technology that was used to manually run the stargates on a planet and in the universal sectors. We're being trained, the beginning training, to be what's called the Templar team. There's 144,000 humans that are needed, 12 groups of 12, to run the Templar appropriately. There are 144,000 human beings needed in the event of cataclysm to reseed. the race. Without that many, there would not be enough critical mass of frequency for such a thing to be successful. If we're successful in this time period where we buffer some of the things that could otherwise be very not pleasant to move through, all of us on planet will be entering an opportunity, that true golden age. Actually, it's a pale silver age of Christos Maharic frequency D12 light, where we will be trained in what once was our commonplace gifts. Once upon a time, you didn't need what we call electricity here. There's a natural way of running power through the Templar that gives you free, sustainable energy. You don't have to burn stuff to make energy. Free energy systems, free clearing systems where water, foodstuff is pure, where it helps to sustain rather than poison the bodies of the things here as we progressively evolve our way out of needing to take things externally to sustain. There is a magic that we have been long suffering for on this planet, and this is the time when the magic begins. One wave will go up to the magic, another wave will go down. We will each have a choice of which side we will see, but there will come a time when we will witness large amounts of people no longer on the planet, and we will see things that appear to be tragic if we don't know how to look at them with the eyes of the Christos. What appears to be tragedy on the outside might well be the perfect mercy on the inside. So we'll begin to understand that. If we think death is the end, and if we think when things die, or if we think that things can die before their time or anything like that, these are false beliefs. We can jerk our own emotional body around all over the place by entertaining them, by choosing to entertain them. We are going to see pockets of people leaving this planet. They're going to see pockets of people leaving, too. There's going to be a separation of the holograms. It's not going to be bang, zoom, there it goes. It's going to be slower, where it looks like this cataclysm happened here and 5,000 died there. Now, those 5,000 are actually going to experience another set of events. They're not going to remember what we remember. The people that move into the bridge zone will be the ones that carry the most memory. The people who enter what is called the fall, which is known as the path of Arimathea, are going to know a holographically created script. Their bodies are actually going to be dead, but they won't be aware of it. They will think that they ascended, but what they have done was committed themselves to a finite existence within a black hole system. This is part of the truth of the teachings that you won't find in most of the New Age teachings out there right now, because most of the New Age teachings out there right now are being run by certain groups who have controlled this planet since 25,500 BC. Those groups of beings that we'll talk about later have an agenda. They want company in their black hole. So we're being faced with a choice. I really wish we had like 50 years to go through this. We could take one little piece at a time, and it's so much more fun that way. But this is going to be the crash course. It is a point, a time of joy and sorrow. It is a time when reality resets itself. But every promise, every hope or vision of utopia that this race ever held, and the reason they held those visions of utopia was because once upon a time we lived them. We knew what it meant to live a Christos civilization, where only love and openness was the reality. We took upon ourselves a great commission in healing. We allowed ourselves to take on a mutation, to go down into the depths where the dark things were, to see if we could help the dark things become lighter. We took on that commission because we knew when it came down to the end times, we had within us the power to regenerate exactly what we were so we could finish our job. It is that time now. So I really hope there's like a nice vacation at the end of this one, but we still have got between now and 2017 to get through. I hope that the new people coming in, won't feel too overwhelmed right away. It depends on where you're coming in from. If you've read Cathara, you'll have a certain base of information that's very useful. If you have read the Voyager series, you'll have a certain base of information very useful. If you haven't read or experienced any of the other work from here, hang in there is all I can say. Move through this. This is actually a simple program. And it gets simpler. When you get to the end and we hit that all-powerful Technique 8, thank goodness. I mean, I'm grateful, believe me. Because most of us don't have time to do how many steps are in that one, how many times a week. This will be much quicker. But if you can hang in there and realize there's a great love and a great freedom and great direct connection to Source that is yours. We're not teaching you to worship anything outside of yourself and your own direct connection to Source. We don't tell you what name to call God, and for goodness sakes, we don't want you to look at us as gurus. It doesn't matter who we are, Az and I. It doesn't matter who Mac is. What matters is what we teach and what you can do for yourself with it, if you have the courage. The reason it takes courage is because most of what we teach just literally shatters the illusion of no, you can't, that you're taught by other belief systems. If you hold the Bible sacred and you think you have to call your God Jehovah or you're going to go to hell, and you think you have to pray this way and that's the only way you can pray, and if you're not Christian, Christians are going to be saved and the others aren't. If you are holding those belief systems, realize you are making a choice. That doesn't mean that's the way reality works. It means you're making a choice without really knowing where the book came from. Somebody told you God wrote it. Interesting. Maybe God did. What God? See, there's questions you need to ask yourself about the dogmas you might be carrying with you and holding on to. Just because your parents did it doesn't mean it was the right way. Just because 20 generations of human beings said it was one way doesn't mean it was right if they were basing their actions on theory. So have some courage and have a sense of play. Because ultimately, a true master, someone who truly integrates spiritually, can look at a drama, even a thing that looks bad, like say a World War III drama or something, and can realize the perfection that actually exists within what's taking place, can love all sides and see no sides, but know how to handle themselves in absolute love, but also absolute power, so they can be a healing influence within the drama. We will teach you sometimes of scary themes, but we teach you not to be afraid of them. Christos beings are afraid of nothing. If you are afraid, there's a part of you that needs to remember your Christos self. And it's not going to remember that just by telling yourself over and over. You're going to remember it by feeling it. That's what the techniques are for. They progressively, if you use your mind to work the techniques, they will. And it won't happen overnight. Well, sometimes it might. But usually, it takes a while. You'll slowly begin to feel the opening. And you'll find little things shifting in your life that you don't realize right away are actually related. You might lose a job, lose a spouse, lose a house, or gain one. Where'd that come from? You shifted frequency, and the old patterns you expanded beyond. If you experience loss of something, learn to interpret that for what it is. You just made room for something bigger and better and higher up on your evolutionary scale. If you hold on to what you think you lost, you block the thing that's going to come to fill it. Change is the way of evolution. When you're doing conscious, expedited evolution, like this planet is doing right now, you don't have a choice, really. You just have a choice on how you're going to approach it. Everybody is going to do rapid evolution on this planet right now because the stargates are opening, and the frequency is going to come through, and it's going to push through our DNA whether or not we're ready. But when you choose to understand how that process works and how you can work with it, you can start to have a sense of humor about what you watch happen in your life, because things change quickly. And other things that you really would like to change, like right now, stick around. Every bit of this is a lesson about how to learn to use some part of your energy better. It may be a part you don't realize you have yet. Most of us don't realize we have a shadow body. And boy, that shadow body right now is controlling 2/3 of your life force, 2/3 of your mental process, 2/3 of your lifespan. The shadow body isn't evil, isn't a bad part of you. It's a part of you that was subjected to mutation that needs help. That's all. We're going to learn how to heal the shadow body, and it's specific, because it is a specific anatomy structure. It is not a vague theoretical, oh yeah, there's this shadow thing, all that conceptual fluff stuff. Oh gee, and just picture a big shadow walking around behind me. How do I make it go away? No, actually, it's over to the left and at an angle. I'm serious. You'll find out what it is. It's a part of the template that's reversed, and it actually has part of your identity focused within it. And somebody's messing with that identity, and that's why the shadow body hasn't been able to heal. That's why you still get that polarity in consciousness. That's why no matter how hard you try with your mind, and no matter how hard you meditate and say how many mantras and do whatever it is you're trying to do to get yourself to that higher, bigger space, that shadow body is like a weight around your neck, that it just keeps pulling you back down. And what's really scary is if you bought into a belief system, some of these New Age belief systems, not all of them are bad, but some of them, and in fact none of them are bad, but some of them aren't particularly good for you, but some of them will teach you to, I'm above all that now, I don't have a negative side, I'm going to be light, love, and clueless, and when you do this, you let your shadow body run the show from behind the scenes. When you deny its existence, you are denying, it's like denying your left foot. Excuse me, you got one. You can hop around on your right foot for as long as you want to, but you might as well put the other one down and acknowledge that it's there. And if it's not working right, fix it. That's what we're teaching people how to do. I'm really excited, and I could go on forever. I mean, I can do. Tonight is the introduction, so I don't do the, the Mylars and those kind of things, or the transparencies. We have the transparencies for the coursework. Did everybody get their book? Okay, so you've got your basic dance floor book. There's going to be a supplement that I'm going to be finishing tonight and getting printed tomorrow that you'll have for the last day, for Sunday, that gets into the shadow body and those kind of things. It's a consolidated version of the contact workshop thing that actually came through as we did the workshop, which was a nightmare. I don't think we slept at all last night. I hardly slept at all on that trip. We got to see Bermuda like one day and the boat maybe 3 times outside of the lecture room. But it's a consolidated summary version of the most important things that were given in the contact course. The exercises and the ones that they hadn't given us yet in there, they only took us up to like 8 to 7. We're going to get the rest of the techniques that were promised. And that information, I think, is the most valuable thing that you could be given right now by us or by the Iani. There are many, many adventures to come. Some of you will move with us, and there's a next level of program that's coming with there's 2 more dance floors to come. There's Dance for Freedom, which is getting into being able to, that was called a Betahuva scan, understanding how to be able to see your own DNA template, to see what's there and to see what needs to be cleared so you can more accurately focus in. But there's a lot more. The Dance for Freedom workshops begin a process of learning to really shift. They will include, I believe, advanced astral body training, which we just start in this supplement that I'm talking about that you're going to get on Sunday. You're going to find out what the heck your astral body is, where it is within the anatomy structure, and why it's not working the way it's supposed to, and how to begin healing that process. But then there's the process of, before you can get your body through a portal, you need to get your mind there first. You need to get your astral body there first. And you need to unleash the seals. There's things called crystal seals within the body. They're frequency seals that hold and regulate the flow of what's called the Kundalini energies and the higher energies that are up above the Kundalini energies. We're going to learn how to release those in the most rapid, expedited way possible. Because of what's coming in May of 2003, only part of which, as and I know about right now, we are being given the most advanced, most rapid technologies possible. Part of it is because some of us are going to be asked to help anchor certain frequencies that will counterbalance other frequencies so it doesn't turn into a mess quickly. There's going to be a time for some of us that stick with it. And it may be individually, or it may be at one of our workshops, but it may be in your own backyard, where you get to meet Niani, where you see a thing. Did I see that? Did I see an oscillation over there in my yard? What was that? And you get a feeling, and you feel drawn to go see. I thought I saw something, but then it was gone. Then you see it again, like a waveform happening in a spot in the atmosphere in your yard. It might be flat, it might be here, it might be up here. And you will begin to see a reality on the other side of that waviness in the atmosphere. And eventually, you'll be able to project over. But you'll be invited because you'll find somebody else on the other side saying, hello, we're here, we're here. When you begin to have that experience, that is the precursor to being able to take the body by activating the stuff you're learning how to do now and putting in the final set of mathematical codes, which are induced through symbols. You don't have to learn math to do this. You don't have to be, a calculus major to deal with it. You just have to remember some simple symbol pictures and shapes and where to put them within your energy systems. Some of us will get to walk through physically. Az and I are, that's the course we're on. We'll give it our darndest, We tax our bodies a lot, frequency-wise, just trying to get the information here on paper. We don't sleep sometimes, we don't eat, we really push it, which makes it where we can say, well, hopefully we'll get our bodies through this time. Theoretically, we can, but we use a lot of energy in other ways that we could be using to do the activations ourselves, to get our bodies ready for it. We're moving into a phase now that's kind of fun, where finally we get to take care of ourselves a little bit too. Because if we're going to be able to continue to hold a frequency field for the other waking up indigos and humans, we need to be able to heal and stabilize our own bodies. We can't keep pushing them the way we have. We're going to be, when we go to England, where Stargate 11 is, we're going to be taught some really wonderful things that I think all of you will have a good time with learning about. We're going to be taught about plants and animals and water, and what you can do with these things, and what you can do once you do things with these things to raise their frequency into bridge zone compatibility. You're going to be able to learn to make things that will support your DNA activation process. This is information we've been waiting a long time for, as far as can you do herbs or supplements, or what can I do with water? Can I charge water with these symbol codes? Yes, you can do all those things. But we're going to be given translations off the CDD plates that has to do with dietary recommendations, exercise recommendations, sleep pattern recommendations that will help you in this process of growing and activating. So, I don't know, what are we doing on time? I haven't a clue. Oh? Okay. Yeah, sometimes I can keep going. I look and it's 4 hours, and I was on a 2-hour workshop. Okay. Okay. As I was just saying, he would 2 minutes before we're done, let him speak. Anyway, what we're going to go through between now and Sunday is going to be probably a very interesting experience, particularly if you're new to the work. Does it get easier for you guys that have followed for a while? Oh, good. See, so you guys that might sit here and go, oh my God, what did I do in this workshop? What am I in this workshop for? Right? It does get easier, and it gets fun. But what's most important is you will, if you stick with it and work with the technologies that are given, begin to find a strength, more of you inside you, where you'll start to drop some of the compensation patterns that your subconscious had to adopt just to survive as long as you did. Where you start to realize that you can say to yourself, I am blessed right now. Right now, I have my Christos avatar self. I am my Christos avatar self. It's not all in body yet, but it's there. Now, if you want to go on an ego trip and say, I am my Christos avatar self and I know everything right now, and you don't need to learn any of this, good luck. see how fast you're going to walk through a portal. There's a balance of humility and confidence that spiritual mastery is about. It's not about being a martyr that lets everybody walk all over you and you have so much humility you treat yourself like you're a piece of dirt. That's not humility. That's not humility at all. It's self-abuse. And if you are a living, walking piece of the consciousness of God, why are you abusing God? If you're abusing yourself and you're claiming to love God, they're contradictory. You need to take care of you. And even if everybody all your life has told you you're a piece of garbage, you have the right now to choose differently. You have the right to say to yourself, maybe I should just consider the source. Who are they to make that judgment call? I can choose different. I choose to believe, to know that I'm blessed. And if I can't know it yet, I'll at least believe it until I begin to feel it. The more you tell yourself that you are a blessed being, the more you will know what that means because you will embody it and live it. The more you tell yourself you are an avatar, the more of your avatar self you will embody. The more you tell yourself you are capable, yes, you can, yes, I can, the more you will see that manifest. And when it comes down to it, be it a year from now, 2 years from now, or in 2012 or 2017, when all of the stargates fully open, if you tell yourself, yes, I can walk through that portal, those will be the people, the ones who have done the work, but also tell themselves they can do this. And they know it's not just words. Why? Because they did what was required to live up to those words. They didn't just do wishful thinking, somebody else will do it for me. You know? Your mind is the most powerful gift you have right now to work with. And your mind is a part of your spirit that is always, always with you. I feel that spirit of all of you in the room. And all of you have a different feel. You are each a living vibration in light and sound. It's kind of neat when you close your eyes. Try this. Try to close your eyes and feel for a moment the persons around you. You can first feel the body presence, like the warmth. There's somebody sitting there. Try to see first which direction your attention goes first. Is it the person to your left, to your right, in front, or behind? It'll probably go to the person you know if you're with somebody. But just try to feel the presence. Now try to imagine that when you look at that person with your 3D eyes, you're actually seeing a mask. You're seeing an untruth. You're seeing what's called a domain identity. Like a little costume somebody put on an energy form that was on the internet, a little costume, a drawing. Try to close your eyes and see the reality of the being that you're feeling in light and sound. It's there. Sometimes it's easier to first see it in another before you can recognize it in yourself. Try to turn your attention now away from the person you were trying to see as light and sound, and to imagine for a moment that you are seeing you in your true form. A form that is beyond arms, legs, heads, toes, hair. A form that is light and sound. Try to get a feel for its color, its movement. Try to hear the symphony it sings. Because right now, your being is singing. And it's in that song that the eternal presence of your Christos lives. And if you learn to turn your 3D mind into hearing that song, more and more, you will make a communication link between that spirit part of you and the 3D part. And there will come a time when there is no separation, where you perceive no separation. You will know you are the song. You will know you are the sound and light pattern. The things that hurt, the things that feel like chains around your ankles and necks and things, they will all become something different. If you can realize that just like you can see your neighbor or yourself as a pattern of light and sound, anything in your reality, your cat, your dog, your refrigerator, your kid, your boss, your job itself is a quantity of energy that has a pattern of light and sound. When you begin to realize this, you're beginning to see templates. And that is the place where you can create. When you begin to see those templates behind things, the patterns of light and sound upon which things form, this is your first step into being in your power, where you can take that knowing and begin to sense where those colors and sounds are out of whack, where the sounds are too flat or too sharp or disharmonic and fighting with each other, where the lights aren't moving right together or the colors are clashing. What you're seeing is frequency disharmonics that need healing. You can heal a pattern in your life. Let's say you have a reoccurring pattern, like you keep getting jobs you hate anyway. You think the next one will be better, but it still stinks. You get there for a week, and after that week you really wish you weren't there anymore, but you can't think of anywhere else you'd rather be because they all felt that way. This is a pattern of energy, all right? It's not just one tangible thing, a desk, a job, a person. It is a reality projection that's given you trouble. If you can begin to try to see the patterns of light and sound as if you took a snapshot of that whole yuck that you want to get rid of, and then translate that snapshot into light and sound patterns, begin to see where the things seem to work, where there's a good flow of energy, and where the disharmonics are. You may see big black blobs in that snapshot of light and sound. That's where you can learn to direct, once you learn to activate it, your D12 Christos frequency into those spaces and literally change the space in the template. What you're doing is reprogramming your DNA. What you're doing is taking out a karmic miasmic mess out of your template and putting in a healing. Your DNA template is the film strip through which your consciousness projects a three-dimensional hologram. We have a common film strip to some degree on this planet. That's why we can all see the same place. That's why we all recognize that we're on a planet with other people. We wouldn't see each other if we didn't have some similarity in template. If we can realize that right in our bodies, we have a film running that our conscious mind can directly begin to change the pictures out here by changing the little film that's running through the projector, we begin to know our power. There's so much that can be learned from within yourselves. The beginning, there's many beginning points. There's many wonderful techniques that we've been given. The Cathara Healing Program is a wonderful program. It's very essential in certain ways. But if you don't do the Cathara Healing Program, if you got to start somewhere, the dance floor programs are the best place to start. They're the quickest and easiest and technique-filled parts that will start making the difference. But if you want data, we've got history books. You want big picture agenda, we've got Voyagers, oh Lord. And we've got the one that's not printed yet, which is called the Forbidden Testaments of Revelation, which literally reveals the genealogy charts for the last 950 billion years in this time matrix, coming right down to the creation of humans, when that was, and right up through the creation of what are called the hybrid Leviathan races on planet Earth, which became the Illuminati family lines that are running things behind the scenes right now on planet, to the Grail lines that were the human and indigo lines that are alive on planet right now. It covers the history that has taken place, that has led us to this place of amnesia. So that's coming too. And it's funny, a lot of people say, who is the history? Just give me the technique. I'll tell you something. The history is a technique. Language, what is it? Anybody? What is language? Outside language. Sound! Yes, sound, vibration, it's sound, right? Now, if there's sacred sounds that we use to create vibrational reaction in our DNA template, just think what we might be doing with language. Every time we speak or think a thought in linear language, we are creating something activating in our DNA template. When we get into history, anybody in history class, like in school, was that like the class you really just wanted to snore all the way through? Anybody have an aversion to it? Like, actually, yuck, I don't want to read that. Some of that aversion comes from the fact that a part of our bodies recognize it's a lie. We have been fed false history here, and it's disharmonic with the parts of our divine blueprint that are left, no matter what language you translate it into. There's been lies told here to reprogram us. Every time we absorb a concept, it goes in energy form into our DNA template. It gets added to our shields, which are our manifestation template. We have been fed, since 25,500 BC, a progressive stream of lies about our identity, our limitations, our planet, and our role here, and about false gods that we were told we were supposed to create, to worship, bow down to, beg for life from. Gods that existed outside of ourselves. This programming holds the mutations in our body. When we give the history, at least it's a little more fun, it's a little more colorful than the stuff you find in, 10th grade history class. But what it is doing, it is resetting. And this is what a speaker's first job is, even if we never let it come out our mouths. It's to bring the history banks back through, which are the original scalar patterns of the true progression in time, vibrationally speaking, that this planet went through. And in so doing, we get it back on its natural time cycle of evolution. Because this planet has been literally distorted and has been going in loops where it should have gone through spirals upward in its evolutionary tracks through time, has been going in a loop like a donut because of certain blockages in the planetary shields that have to do with pieces of history, true history, in vibrational form as light sound patterns, literally being taken out of the grids. The indigos are here on this planet at this time to put the history back. So, When we tell you we have history books and stuff, every time you read some of the history, you are recoding and putting back in the scalar signatures that were rendered dormant in your template. They're already in there. But when you read it here, it creates an energy exchange. This energy pops back down, it hits your shield, your DNA template, and that piece of the DNA wakes up and sequences into its natural order. So I just want you to know that in the history, there is technique. The history itself is technique. So for those of you who keep, there's a lot of people that, oh, can't we just do technique? Just give me technique. You know, leave the history out of it. In fact, my publisher's been saying that recently. But for now, we have enough history. For those of you who aren't familiar with the work, I'm not lying. We do have a lot of history. It's interwoven in the Voyagers book series. It's in the Templar Planetary Stewardship Initiative course book. We tried to keep it out of the Cathara Biospiritual Healing Program so we could just keep that where we didn't have to talk about things like ETs and stuff, you know, and fallen angelics and things. The history's there, but what's most important is the challenge is here now for all of us. We've been teaching since 1999 only. We've been in training to teach since we were 4 years old. And I won't say how long ago that was. It wasn't that long ago, actually. Yeah, I think it was. I turned 38. I keep forgetting whether I'm 38 or 39. Yeah, I was 38 on September 1st, right? I worked hard to prepare for a time when I could share the truths that meant so much to me, that actually got me out of the terror of public speaking to the point where I actually do this for a living. Oh my God, right? I actually come out and put myself up and talk about stuff that about 90% of the population, if not more, would just say, boy, she's a wacko, isn't she? The thing is, I know I'm not a wacko. I know I have been so fortunate to experience the realities of some of the things I've known. I have been through the gates. I was taken through when I was younger for my training. I know the place called Inner Earth exists. I've walked in these most amazing crystal pylon temples that have massive selenite crystal rods that are better than the thing you saw in the Superman movie way back when. Right? Gorgeous places. I have met races of beings who still epitomize what it meant to be human and to be an indigo, what it meant to be a universal guardian race, who have held for us the memory while we came here, knowing we'd forget, because we were going to take on the disease so we could heal it within ourselves. Because if we could heal it within ourselves, we'd know how to hopefully heal it for the others who had fallen. Our commission is almost up, humans and indigos here. That doesn't mean we're all going to die or get flattened or anything. It means there's going to be changes, big changes. And it's time to wake up. If Az and I can help you, and Mac can help you in your awakening process, we feel good. Because you get to a certain point of spiritual actualization where you realize you are the manifester of anything you see in your hologram. There's a part of you that agrees to take on a part of a mass reality in order to experience a mass reality on a planet with other people. So you can't blame anybody, if it gets bad. But when you get to that point and you realize you can manifest, if you can manifest yucky stuff, you can also manifest good stuff. And once you get good at it, and you realize the mechanics, you start to realize you can manifest or have anything. And the more you realize you can have anything, the less you find you have a need for. You don't need it. But you could have it if you want. How many houses can you manifest before you get bored manifesting houses? With me, it's how many times can you redecorate the house you have before you can get bored doing that, How many colors are you going to paint that room? After a while, you get to the point where you recognize the one real desire. And this is where you start to really hold what it's like to have God consciousness in you. The one desire is to serve, to give, to express love. Sometimes that love won't come back, but boy, when it does, it is the most joyful feeling in the universe to create, to be, and to have someone to share that with. That was the original reason why God created manifestation in the first place. God was God. God knew itself as God. God was consciousness with no limit, no bounds. But it wanted to know itself as many so it could interact and have a joyous experience of creation, eternal, perpetual. This is what we'll go back to. So if we can assist you and you're finding yourself, it's not giving you anything. It's simply reminding you of what you have right inside of you right now and giving you back kind of the roadmap to what the biology is so we can fire the memory banks and start getting our power back. That fulfills us. It fulfills the desire to give love. And it's our way of being able to share love in the highest way that we know. I'm going to, I believe, turn this over to Azatanya now. And now, there's some new people here, so we're going to start at the beginning of the program, even though a lot of people have already gone through the Dance 4 program or have done it through correspondence. I have to remember to stay out of the middle of that, don't I, Dan? Yeah, I keep walking in front of the light and it messes up the video. So, we're going to go on a very rapid journey. I have to get my brain out. See, I literally just got off the computer to get the disc done that has to go get a master made so it can be all put together so it can go to Kinko's so it's ready for tomorrow morning. So now I have to get my brain back into level 1, where it was just on level God knows what you'd call it. So it's like an introduction, really. The techniques are an introduction to Dance for Freedom, and that's really what they're about. There is a fascinating set of techniques that we can use, first of all, to find out what the heck our shadow body is, where it is, what to do with it, and how to literally bring it back in and heal it with energy as energy. The shadow body is where your karmic miasmic imprint lives. So as we're doing this, what we are literally doing is clearing the karmic miasmic imprint. We are clearing completely, not just our reversals, our twisted scalar waves in our templates from this life, but across the board. Every being that comes into manifestation originally comes through a Christos divine blueprint, which implies they have a minimum of 1,728 selves. So, you're clearing 1,728 selves worth of karmic miasmic imprint. There are a lot of belief systems out there that will teach you to surrender that to somebody else who's more powerful than you are. Send it to the Lords of Karma, and if they like you, they'll fix it for you. You don't need the Lords of Karma because you are one yourself. If you can make the karma happen in your body, if you can make reversals and take them on without knowing it at this point, you can also fix them. But finally, we're being given the technologies to do that. We've been waiting for these for a long time, but there are reasons they weren't given earlier. They weren't given earlier because it requires a whole series of frequency-building activations in your shields and in your DNA template before your body can even hold these activations that are strong enough to clear the shadow imprint. In the shadow imprint lives your subconscious mind as well, the part of the mind that science calls the subconscious. That is a part of ourselves that has all sorts of bits and pieces of fragmented parts of our identity that are unassimilated, little idea groupings that are in fighting and conflict with each other, twisted, reversed thought patterns that are born out of twisted, reversed parts of our template. These are the things that drive us around like as if we didn't have a brain. There's always a fight, it seems, in the human body, between the human body and the human mind and spirit. The impulses that the body gives us, that drives us to. It can be the abuse of the sexual impulse, where we get dragged around all over with that, or it could be the impulse of food, eating food or not eating food. This impulsive nature, where do we get that impulse, that fight or flight instinct? Fight or flight, that doesn't leave you too many options. Either fight and punch it, or you run away. They tell us this is normal. Science tells us this is normal because it observes this behavior in the animal kingdom and in the human kingdom. What science does not acknowledge, however, is that the DNA of everything on this planet right now is polarized, twisted, and reversed because of the magnetic field distortions on a planetary level. It is not normal to have the survival of the fittest mentality or impulse nature. That nature, that fight or flight instinct, is not an instinct. It's a distorted set of impulses that take on chemical life within the body through the DNA that direct us here, there, and everywhere. It's also the same artificial instinct that makes us ill, where it changes the hormonal interactions in the body and the way they should normally function. So there's a huge freedom that's coming to us now with the gift of the teachings that have to do with, first of all, finding out what the shadow body is, where the heck it lives, and what you do with it once you know you have one. There isn't anybody that doesn't have one. If there was an ascended master from the highest levels that incarnated right now, right here before us, just passing through what's called the cave of creation in its core, the gates there, it would pick up the distortions that would create instantly a shadow body imprint. So there's nobody that's free from it. The people that run around in the New Age movement call themselves ascended masters, and even the ones that appear and disappear like the Maitreyas of the world and those kind of things. These beings are not what they claim to be. They have a shadow issue too. But what they don't teach you is the fact that everybody has one and there's a way to heal it, because they have a vested interest in you keeping your shadow. Because the shadow body is literally a template of energy that is twisted in a way that it can be used as a feeding system, a pipe, like a wormhole, into your body from another system that does not belong as part of our universal structure, nor as part of our personal biology. For the first time, we're at the cusp of freedom. It's been since 25,500 BC, during an event called the Lucifer Rebellion. It happened in Atlantis, and the records of this were buried in 9,558 BC with the contrived fall of a place called Atlantis. The history records were taken. So were a lot of the relics. There was a history wipe done on this planet to make sure by the time we got to this time period, this stellar activation cycle, this Stargate opening cycle, we wouldn't know who we were, what a Templar was, or what to do with ourselves. It would just run on autopilot, and those who were manipulating it from behind the scenes would be able to simply use our bodies to direct what was happening on the planetary Templar. Fortunately, the guardian races, the Iani and many others, there's the Iani that are in the inner ecosystems and many others going up the stack in the ecosystems. There's also the Maharaji, which are the blue humans that every once in a while throughout our history, even our recorded history, had come here to bring parts of the knowledge back. There's still some of their teachings left in the Sanskrit writings and those kind of things. There are also certain blue humans that aren't the Maharaji that look similar because they literally stole the gene code. They used DNA of captured Maharaji to create something that was not meant to be created in order to allow something from the fallen matrices to inhabit it. So just because it's blue and human doesn't mean it's necessarily serving a good agenda. But the Maharaji of Sirius B, they are of the star when we look up in the sky, that's called Sirius B. This is a density 2 level of existence, dimensions 4, 5, and 6. They're of semi-etheric matter density, which means almost as solid as us, but not quite. They'd be a little bit less solid if they were to appear here to you. The Maharaji and the Iani will be some of the first when the dust settles here after the next 15 years, maybe less, it could be 5 years, that they will be the introduction teams. When it comes time to introduce to the people of this planet the fact that we have never been alone in this universe, that our aloneness was part of our own delusion and our own illusion, and that it was only a matter of time before our species and our planet outgrew that delusion. It will be the Maharaji and the Iani, because they are most closely related to us, that will come to let us know that they're there. Both of those races are human-looking. Some of them have elongated skulls. There have been skulls of the Iani found. I believe it was in Brazil, but I'm not sure. But it's in the books about forbidden archaeology. There's a lot of things that the archaeologists have found that are getting stuffed in boxes or destroyed completely because they don't fit in with the scientific paradigm that's being shoved down everybody's throats. A good friend of mine is an archaeologist, and she went through all sorts of stuff, went through her early days where she had to just dig all the time, and then finally she graduated to the point where she had a desk job, a museum job, where other people do the digging and bring the stuff in, and then you kind of categorize it and stuff. She liked that. But she was very, very honest. She said, what really disillusioned me in the whole field, she said, I always had a passion for archaeology, but when I got there, what I found was everybody shuts everybody else up. There's certain things that you are not allowed to hypothesize. If you do, you get blacklisted. You don't get jobs, you don't get contracts, you don't get grants, and nobody in your own profession will talk to you. And she said, I have a choice. Someday I might write a book, but right now I'm not ready to do that, so I just go along with the flow. She's a person who considers herself pretty much a Nazarite, but she doesn't want to deal with some of it because it scares her. Oh dear, ETs and things. But she's seen enough in archaeology to see the cover-ups that have been going on here for years and years. So races that we talk about with our teachings, the Eoni races, the Maharaji, they're not figments of our imagination. They're products of our history, the true history that we've been denied, and what is really beautiful about the times we're in. Though they might be chaotic, and they might be probably going to get a bit more chaotic on the outside, there's going to be a lot of changes that take place, and some of them will appear very difficult on the surface. There is still a beautiful reward at the end of all of this, where we rediscover ourselves. We find out the fact that we are also stellar beings. We weren't created on Earth, we were brought to Earth. We were created on Gaia and Tara in densities 2 and 3, and we were brought here to try to heal this planet. So we're stellar humans, the angelic human. It's higher than your basic stellar celestial being. Celestial basically goes up to about D9. We were actually created as a form. Our form would hold ascended masters, the indigos would. And as far as the human 12-strand form, it would hold the consciousness of a D12 level Christos avatar in flesh, where it could go through any of the densities. So we were kind of like the cosmic patrol, the healing patrol that would come through. We were the guardians. There's a song that was done by Queen a while back, that We Are the Champions song. And whenever that comes on, it's like some part of me kicks in and just does the We Are the Guardians song. Yeah. We are the guardians, my friend, and we'll go on fighting till we win. Anyway. I'm being silly but serious at the same time, because there's a sentiment in that song that when you substitute champions for the word guardian, which is even more important, there's a resonance within the whole human population. And even if you happen to be a hybrid, that your soul might have come from someplace else, you might be a reptile person in there, you might be an Omicron, Draconian, Dragon Moth person in there, you might be an Anunnaki of various strains and things, you might even be a beetle person inside. What's frightening is none of us know, right? Oh my God, what am I in there? I think I'm human, I look like I'm human, nobody told me if I was human or not, right? These are some of the things we're going to discover when we go into opening up the subconscious, when we go into integrating our higher parts. All of us will find that we have a Syrian self, and if we are human, if you are indeed a full human soul incarnate or an indigo, you will be what's called an Orapheme or a Turanicium. Now, both of those are beings that were created off this planet. That is what a human is. An Orapheme is an indigo human. It was the original 24 to 48 strand being that the smaller 12-strand beings that were called the Turanicium humans were created from. So as we learn more about ourselves, we will learn that there's not anybody on this planet right now that's exempt from having a bit of Anunnaki in them, a bit of Draconian in them, a bit of Reptilian in them, because there's been so much forced hybridization that's gone on down here since Atlantis and in Atlantis. Atlantis was a nightmare. At the end, before the fall, it was an absolute nightmare. People were taken to the temples and tortured. They had torture devices that could literally force a computer-type thing to read your cellular memory. It'd fry your circuits while you were having your full cellular memory downloaded into a computer bank. There were horrible genetic experiments done. When I see the things that they're doing right now, where they're beginning to grow ears on the backs of mice, and they're beginning to clone things, this is just the beginning. This is Atlantis revisited. It's coming back, and it's going to move very, very quickly. It's actually moving more quickly than most people realize. It takes about 10 years before they actually release something to the public, once they know how to do it. Now, they've already done humans. They've already cloned humans. There's a group of people in Canada and a few other places. I won't name them because I don't want to get sued by their organization. But they are very outfront about the fact that they do ETs, all right? They're in communication with the Elohim, and they are scientifically advanced in the Elohim. Of course, there are creator gods, all this nonsense. But they have a vested interest in scientific community. They hold several important positions within scientific organizations, and they have a major movement going where they are pushing for, they're actually doing it. They're doing live cloning of human embryos. And what they're doing are raising bodies for the raider races who are coming in to incarnate into directly. So it's not, all of this isn't fiction, it's not science fiction. If we put the pieces together that are scattered all over our three-dimensional reality here, you start to see where the things that we talk about in this work are not so far-fetched and are not so out there. In fact, they make a heck of a lot more sense than any of the garbage you've been fed about where humans came from and what our history is. There's more extensive history records that we've just seen in the last 4 years. You can imagine when those 590 volumes of the Mahabharata texts are translated. I won't be doing all of that, you know. But we are right now at such a wonderful point in time. We can learn to play with some fun stuff that we're going to do today, which is the Dance for Life things, where you're going to find out, if you don't already know, what your Merkaba field is and how you turn your Merkaba field into a Merkaba vehicle. You're going to learn about the ancient sciences of light and sound, which were, when you take light and sound back to its true core, you're talking about scalar waves, scalar standing waves, columnar waves that are fixed in a position, that form a grid, that form a fabric of consciousness and energy, within which and through which all things manifest, know their being. This is the templates of reality that we talk about. It's called chelantic science, or the science of the shields, which is another word for the templates. But the word chelantic science comes from the word chelan. Chelans are, you could consider them kind of like, you know how we have watts for light bulbs? They're measurements of energy. Now, chelans are specific formulations of something called groups of particae, particae, and particum, which we'll get into a little bit. We're going to run through that fast. I know a lot of you have heard this a million times, but there's some of you that might not have heard it at all. And I don't want to bore to death the people who know this already, and I don't want to just lose completely the people who don't know it. So we're going to go through it quickly. We'll go through the anatomy quickly, starting with the particae, particae, particum, and getting up to the fact of where your shields are located, what your Cathara grid is, all that stuff that a lot of you have heard over and over again. But we'll try to get through that quickly so we can get to the good stuff. Now, the good stuff is where you get to play with the mechanics, where you get to use the tones and begin to feel what certain tones do in your body. At first, you might not feel anything, but some people do right away. The real fun part is when you get this many people up and spinning to move their Merkaba manually. See, you have a Merkaba field around you, and imagine two cones of energy, one going this way and the other going this way, and you're inside these two cones of energy. Right now, they are both spinning in the opposite direction to which they should be spinning. Because right now, 2/3 of the planetary Merkaba is spinning in the reverse direction. What that does is draw life force energy out of our bodies and sends it into the black hole system. Literally, our Merkaba fields are being used as a feeding mechanism. Right now, because the planetary grids are also doing this, the planet isn't going to help us. We can't help the planet unless we do something. The planet can't help us unless we do something. And the something we can do is understand our biology enough to play with our biology. We have the ability to, if we run enough current, open up the seals and run enough interdimensional current of D12 and higher in our bodies, we can literally use the matter form itself to change the direction of the Merkaba spin back to what it's supposed to be. And every time we do that for ourselves, we help the planet to take a piece of its own grids and bring them back into the natural spin. Merkaba spin is important because Merkabas are connected directly to DNA. The Merkaba actually feeds frequency, feeds energy, feeds consciousness into and out of the DNA template. If our Merkabas aren't working right, our DNA isn't going to work right. So what we get to do today is going to be interesting, because what I'm going to do today, because there's so much on the shadow body that I want to focus on tomorrow, and so much on after the shadow body, what I would like to share with you about what's happening on the planetary level and about the ARC project and about some of the things that are going to happen in May, we're going to try to do the 2 dance floors today. All today. Usually, we have 1 day for Dance for Life and 1 day for Dance for Love. So what we're going to try to do is get both of them in today. And I think we can. When we walked into the room, and you guys were getting the ordinations, there was frequency flying, okay? You could just feel it. My little hair stood up on my arms and said, oh, feel this. Yeah, there's a lot of energy, which means there's a lot of consciousness in this room. There's a lot of people ready. So I think we will be able to move at a very nice pace and get through the 2 Dance 4 programs. There will be some breaks in the talking where we're going to have to figure out how to get this many people up and spinning without bumping into each other and chairs and things like that. That'll probably be like after lunch and those kind of things. But I want to get through the basic biology part first. I'll do it quickly but slowly enough for the new people to hopefully be able to see where the pieces fit enough to use them. Now, if you want more information on the biology, get the Cathara Healing Manual. That has a huge amount of information on the biology. If you get enough out of what we cover today, say, okay, I get enough I know where my chakras are, I know I got these shields, and I see where they go with the Merkaba. Okay, that's enough. You can leave it at there, too. You don't have to take a master's in interdimensional biology to be able to run your interdimensional biology. You just have to know some basic reference points. You know, we work mainly, and you probably learned that this morning, for those of you who might not have been here before in other workshops. I was hoping, I said, well, you know, there's some new people there. They might not know where the chakras are. So we were running those activations this morning. Even if there are new people that don't know where the chakras are, and like, where the heck am I putting that? Because we're moving things through the chakra system all the time, if you'll notice with those things. Even if you didn't this morning know where your chakras were when this was being run, there's enough people in the room that are holding the consciousness of that, where the energy would have been directed there anyway. So you got the activation, even if you didn't know where your chakras were. But ideally, you will know where your chakras were when we're done with this, and not just your chakras, but your shields. And you'll know how your shields plug into your Merkaba, and you'll know how your Merkaba plugs into your DNA. And then we get to play. Then we find out about some of the most sacred artwork in the universe. The sacred artwork, we call them the symbol codes, are literally mathematical programs. Did you ever see on a computer how they can use numbers to like create faces and portraits and stuff? By programming numbers into a computer screen, even in our 3D technologies, you can get images and pictures. Now, you can take that image and picture and translate it back to its numbers. All right? It's a mathematical image. Computers can do that. Well, we exist within something much more brilliant than a computer, but it works with a similar principle. Literally, everything that we see manifest, including our bodies, has a mathematical translation in energy. Just like we have a light and sound translation, well, light and sound translate into scalar waves, and scalar waves translate into mathematical and geometrical interrelationships between units of consciousness. So, when we work with symbol codes, it's really so wonderful because we don't have to try to memorize the Lotus computer language or anything like that. We don't have to work with the numbers directly. We work with the images that hold the content of the numbers. And we work with them if we can realize that everything here has an energy signature. When we read something, we usually don't think about this, but when we read something or look at something, we are taking an imprint of that energy signature and we're bringing it back inside of ourselves. And that's how we get an understanding of what we're seeing or what we're reading. Well, when we take one of these symbol codes and put it in the right place, in the right way, because we know our biology, we can create massive activations of the right parts of our shields to correct the problems in the DNA and the Merkaba, and to progressively get us into body as fast as possible. Most people don't realize that 99% of the planet is having an out-of-body experience. Most people are asleep here because most of their consciousness is literally out of body because it can't get in body because of the damage in the DNA. What we're doing is beginning, literally, to wake up and get ourselves back in body so then we can learn how to get out of body again but control it. Some of the things we'll cover tomorrow is a little bit about the astral body. We'll begin an exercise that was given to us for the Bermuda trip that was called Astral Awake, Aware, and Able, where we start to release the seals within our bodies that control the movement of that thing, that illusionary thing of the astral body that sometimes pops out in dreams, and sometimes you might find yourself hanging on your ceiling looking down at your physical body. It's like, wow, I'm really out here. Did I die? No, I didn't. Oh, boy. There are some people on this planet who have been trained by beings from the black hole systems to be rather fluent in D4, astral projection, dimension 4. Now, that's not real high. If you figure we're in a 15-dimensional time matrix and that's just the bottom of the stairway to heaven, they're not going very far, but they can do a lot of damage. There are beings that literally, there are remote hit teams right now that go around, they know how to get themselves out of body, they will project to a target, and they not only can observe like they were doing in the remote viewing experiments. They can implant frequency into people's fields. They can do all sorts of things. They can implant planetary grids. And one of the things they can do is they can see other people when they go to sleep. They can see when the astral body tries to come out. And they can harness it and drag it in to experiences in what has been called phantom matrix. Now, phantom matrix was a black hole system that was originally part of our time matrix. That's the one that fell 250 billion years ago. It is phantom matrix that was became attached to a different system, a black hole system that was created that was not part of our system. So literally, when we go to sleep at night, we don't understand where we go. You know how when you go to sleep and then you wake up in the morning, you have no idea where you went for 8 hours. You were somewhere. Consciousness isn't created or destroyed. It doesn't just turn off like electricity and a light switch. Where'd it go? Where were you? Most of us can't answer that question. And if most of us could, we'd be terrified. Because a lot of time, what is taking place is we are actually having that portion. If you could imagine a ghost body, an image of your body that looks like you, but it's of less dense matter, that moves up in frequency and out of register with this body, and then it goes someplace. In its natural state, it would go vertical. It would climb up in frequency, up the vertical, from dimension 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, and it would go traveling. It would go from astral D4 to soul travel in D5, to oversoul travel in density 3, dimension 7, 8, 9, to avatar travel. That's what we're supposed to be able to do. What happens right now is because we have a shadow body, a part of ourselves gets stuck just outside the physical body, where it can't go any further, and the other part goes on a little trip. It goes on a trip into phantom matrix, and every time the astral body, that portion of the astral body gets dragged into phantom matrix, it comes back in, and when we wake up, that part integrates again, and it brings back more reversals that go into our DNA templates. We've been set up to self-sabotage. The mutation that we've been carrying is literally a progressive self-sabotage device, and we've been doing a real good job at it. We've been given belief systems to, from the outside, feed the garbage in, and we've had literally the most sacred space of our dream times, our sacred dream time, has been hijacked. This is the time when this is going to change. We'll start now with anatomy real quick. And like I said, I'll try to go real quick so we don't bore the people who know it already, and just slow enough so we don't lose the people who don't know anything about it yet. Okay. Let's see. I think we'll go to the... Hello. What's this? We don't need that. No, we'll go to the first graph, I think. Yeah, you can save this one for later. We'll put that one up later. But we can go to that. Yeah, this one. We'll do that one, and then we'll go right into Partikai, and Particum. Okay, now, before we understand biology, it helps to understand the forces of consciousness that move through and form our biology and the universe. When we teach the Dance for Life and Love programs, we are working with an understanding of God's source that kind of goes like this. In the beginning, God created the void, which was the intention and desire to create manifestation. God took a portion of its consciousness within itself, and it created a space within which manifestation could take place. That part of God that separated itself to hold that space was called the Manu force. The words that we use come from sonic translations that can be translated into the English external language of vibrational patterns that actually have to do with, as close as you can get to a sound translation, to the vibrational rhythms of whatever it is we're trying to name. That's why if you have a name that your parents gave you and absolutely hated it all your life, get rid of it. And if your parents get upset about that, say, I'm sorry, but I can't allow you to vibrationally define me anymore. You know? I love you dearly, but keep the name, you know? So, up at the top of creation, at the top of the stairway to heaven, where everything begins, and I won't say began, because that implies it began once. We're in a perpetual motion, perpetual creation system. The beginning happens all the time. The endings happen all the time. Time is actually an illusion of the hologram itself. It's really hard to describe what no time is while you're in time. Time is a pulsation of consciousness, as if your consciousness was the light that flashed through those Christmas lights that come, turn on and off in sequence, the little flasher lights. And we can go around in circles, or we can go in arcs. But technically, there is no such thing as space, as time, or as matter. But while you're here, while you're experiencing the bending of consciousness within the mathematical patterns that create the hologram, it all feels very, very real. So in those terms, it is real. But the real starts with the divine trinity of the three primary forces to create creation. Source created within itself, not outside of itself. There is nowhere outside of itself. It created within itself, harnessed off a part of its consciousness and said, okay, over here, I'm going to create this. Did you ever have that mental filing thing where you're really busy and you have 20 different things you have to do? So you say, all right, over here I'll think about this. Over here I have this. It's like you put post-it notes in energy up in your brain, and you actually know where you put that information. If somebody calls and you need that one, it just like comes right down. Oh, there it is. You can have the phone call, then you go back to the other thing you were doing. Well, it's kind of like that, where Source doesn't have a brain and a body. It's beyond that form of expression. It's pure, living, eternal consciousness and intelligence and love. But what Source did to begin the creation was create three aspects of itself. It took a portion of its own energy, and first it created a space within itself, harnessed a space within itself, that this is where creation of individuation will take place. I, as Source, want to experience myself as many different things. What would it be like to feel like I was separate from myself? What would it be like to create? And to create things that could create. What would it be like to have company? If you were one and all, but you hadn't created, and you have a desire to know yourself, Source creates perpetually because it has a desire to know itself, and itself is always becoming more, yet always staying the same. It's a paradox to try to describe the nature of God when we're down here. We can get an understanding of the structure that God uses to make creation. And the more we work with that structure instead of against it, the more we work with it consciously, we can begin to feel the reality of the God presence alive within us. So those things that you can't quite explain in a linear terms, they become direct knowing. You feel it, you get it, you just know it, but the words don't come too easy because words are linear. You have to string it out. That means they're time-coded. There's understandings of the nature of Source that you cannot translate into the time systems. But you can bring enough of yourself as Source into manifestation to find that humorous and to realize that you can move yourself, expand yourself back into that full knowing anytime you want to. The first three forces, we call them God forces. These are before we have primal life force currents, before we have any of that. There are three primordial forces called the Manu, which is the consciousness, the part of God's consciousness it reserved to create the void, or the area within the consciousness of God that would hold manifestation, where the other things that would be created would be put into. It is a living force and presence. It is a living manifestation of Source. It's also considered the still point, the point of non-polarity, the point out of which polarity comes, but the point where it is reunified. It is the first expression of Source. In the beginning was the void, and within the void, God spoke. Next, sound was created, but it's actually pre-sound, vibration. Within the void, another part of the consciousness of God was put into the first part. In that action, the vibration of the consciousness of God that became the Ire force, the divine feminine, was put in with the divine, let's say, spirit, because it has no masculine or feminine. When the Ire intersected with the Manu force, a new force was born on its own. A new part of God consciousness emerged from it. It was called the Mane force, which is the divine masculine. This is the original Trinity. This is what, in the Christian theologies, that was originally taught. They taught about the Manu, the Mane, and the Ire. Each one of us are made of those three forces. And those three forces become many things. They become what are called the 12 constants and the 15 rays. They become the primal life force currents, the living currents of consciousness, God's consciousness, that form everything in matter. There is no way anything can be unholy, but there are ways it can be unwhole. Everything is holy and blessed, because even the worst of the fallen are still made of the substance of the consciousness of God. They are made of Ire, Mane, and Mana force. Now, in the diagram, we have first the Manu force, and within the Manu was the Ire, and between the vibration of the Ire and the non-vibration, the still point of the Manu, emerged the Mane. So this configuration refers to the original Divine Trinity. Now, we'll go on from there to, I'm flipping my large, here we go, to real basic, get through this quick so I don't bore you guys to death, because many of you guys have heard this 1.5 billion times. Do I have it on right? Yeah, a little crooked, but right. Yeah. All right. Now, we're going to come back down to, we're dealing with God forces there, Manu, Mane, Ire. Now we're getting into structure. This is the science part. Now, there's a lot more to this in the Cathar Healing Program and in other things that we're still working on. But right now, it's not important for you or for me to be a nuclear physicist to explain to you the processes of natural nuclear fission and fusion by which the universe perpetuates itself continually. All right? Because that's really what it is in scientific terms. What science here keeps missing is that all energy is conscious. It knows itself somehow. It experiences itself as a being. Therefore, it is alive. There's no such thing as an inanimate object. There are just objects that don't move. That doesn't mean they're not alive. The chairs we're sitting on are composed of molecules, atoms and molecules that are alive. The chair is alive. This comes in funny, actually, when you think about the food we eat. A lot of vegetarians say, oh, I'd never eat an animal. That's terrible. It has a soul. Hate to tell you. Everything does. So whether you chew on straw sticks, carrots, or ants, or beef, you are still eating something with a soul. So if that's the reason, if you're a vegetarian and you chose that reason, that was the reason you felt guilty, that you didn't want to harm something else. There is not a value of higher or lower. Animals are not valued more by God because they have a bigger template. Ants, animals, plants, people, Iani, masters. They may be different in size and in form and in the ability to hold, at the time that you're looking at them, how much God force understanding. But they are always equally blessed and equally loved and equally valuable. Within source, to source, and they are all of source. So there's a respect that we have been programmed out of here. As we lost the knowledge and the memory, we lost respect. We lost reverence for life. Human beings run through this planet now as if it was some play toy that some great God in the sky dropped in our laps and said, here, go abuse it, go break it and rip it apart, and then we'll just put you on another one when you're done doing that. If we can remember that if we value the concept, the idea that there is a God, a source, a spirit, a divine spirit, a great spirit, whatever you want to call it, that's up there, it's intelligent, and somehow it loves us. If you value any concept of spirituality or of God, you must recognize, too, that there is not a single atom in the universe that is not a face of God. So every person you talk to, it may be the really bitchy lady at the drugstore down the corner. It may be the guy at where you took your car to get it fixed that charged you $400 more than it really should have had. It may be your mom who you love but drives you insane and has since you were 4. It may be your ex-spouse or your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend who you don't even want to think about the energy that flies around when those two fields collide. We are all God wearing masks. We choose the masks to experience ourselves and to learn things, to expand. And as we learn, guess who's learning? God. We send information directly into God through our experience. God experiences aliveness and separation from itself through us. It experiences the hologram through us. This is why we need to respect ourselves too. We're a face of God. What we do to ourselves, what we allow ourselves to feel, the situations we choose to put ourselves in that might cause us harm, if it hurts us, that hurt goes back to God. A lot of people think God is neutral. God doesn't have a preference. God loves everybody and loves everything, and it's beyond having any kind of polarity issue at all. So evil is just as good in God's eyes. God created evil, so therefore evil's okay too. God loves it. There's a lot of this going around in the New Age movement. And you know what? It isn't the truth. God does have a preference. In order to create the creation, where it was a free will creation, that implied a potential of once God projected itself into manifestation. Once it found itself individuated, it could make choices that actually were in disagreement with its original self. The potential for evil was created in order to give creation free will through which perpetual motion, eternal life could be known. In order to give the gift of eternal life and the hologram, the framework itself, the potential had to be allowed for. God allows for the presence of evil, but the creation of evil was not a set out thing that God intended to do. But God was fully aware and is fully aware that to have the rest, the potentiality for that expression will always be there too. However, because the core of the original divine intention was based upon absolute love, absolute joy, eternal perpetual life, the creation system itself is self-replenishing and self-rebalancing. When something gets so far out of balance that it threatens to destroy the whole structure of the creation arena itself, the creation arena itself will reset its original divine blueprint. And that will stop the progression of evil. So in terms of good versus evil, we don't even use the term evil. I think evil's kind of funny, because if you look at it backwards, it spells live or live. It's just a reversal. The people or beings who do things that we might consider horrid, things that we could never consider, even imagine ourselves in a million years doing to another being, we can easily label them as evil. But when you use the word evil, we very often get caught up in old Christian dogmas and that kind of thing that talk about devils with pitchforks and fire and brimstone. And then, of course, you have angels that'll save you. Right. Watch out for those angels. Angels carry pitchforks. No. Only some of them. No, they carry flaming blue swords to zap you with. It helps to understand that when we talk about structure, because we're going to talk about a bit about biology and about the structure of templates so you know where parts are and basically how they work together. It's important to not lose sight of the fact that its structure, yes, its energy, yes, but it is consciousness also. So this isn't a course in physics like you normally get that's devoid of any comprehension of the divinity within this structure. These structures are the living forms that the consciousness of God takes on. Just like our form here is an expression, direct expression of God. The expression of the mana in the ire force, they are direct, they're a body shape that God takes on. All right? We look at our bodies as these solid things you can knock on, right? Well, not all things are that solid. When we look at a beam of light that comes from the sun, that is conscious. That is consciousness expressing in waveform. It's a wave of light. Most of creation exists in states similar to that. It's only in the lower density worlds that you get this hologram of frozen light. It's like light that stopped moving. It actually is moving, but we look at ourselves and look back at ourselves at a particular angle of perception that we miss a very important reality. In between our moments of consciousness here, we actually flash off and on. In between our moments, we disappear and come back again. Everything does. The hologram literally turns off and on. But it's at a rhythm and a pulse that can't be picked up by instruments that are contained within the field that is pulsating. You can see the flashing on and off of density 1 by going to density 2 and looking down at it. But you won't be able to see it while you're in it. Our instruments, no matter how sophisticated they become, won't be able to really detect that reality. You'd have to use density 2 instruments to show and prove on a scientific graph with a little ticker tape that they disappeared. There they're back again. What's really weird is we don't all disappear in one piece. First one part goes, then another part goes, and that one comes back, and then another part goes. It's very interesting. If we can fathom that the only true reality that has ever existed and will always exist is the fact that everything is consciousness. And consciousness is beyond substance, but it is the stuff out of which all substance is created. If we can start to realize that, we'll start to get a little feel about how we're not quite so trapped in our life or in our body as we thought we were. It's so easy to get trapped in your life down here. You might not even mind your body so much, if it hurts or if it's the wrong size or it has the wrong hair color, you might, I'll take that one over there, please. But most of us are like, all right, I'll deal with the body. But if it wasn't bad enough that you can't get the perfect body that you want, then there's the job, the house, the neighbors, the spouse, the whole bit. It's like we seem to be stuck in these holograms of things we just don't want. And somehow we're manufacturing them, and we don't remember how or how to fix it. That's very frustrating, and it makes beings very tired. We've actually been stuck in this since 25,500 BC here. We've been in a time loop. And most humans and indigos are very, very tired at this point. They need a recharge. They need a very long vacation in inner Earth. If we can begin to fathom the science that goes with the spirit, this is where we start to really get an understanding of what spirit is, the tangible structure of the soul. That's one of the names of one of our tape sets. There is a tangible structure. Your soul, your oversoul, your avatar self, your rishi level self, your ascended master self. All of those selves have a physically tangible structure just like you do right here. Now, physical is really a relative word. It depends on where you're looking at it from. We see as solid what exists exactly one dimension below our station of consciousness. If our consciousness is stationed in D4, we will see dimension 3 as the solid external hologram. Now, if we were stationed, our consciousness was stationed in D4, we would be fully 4th DNA strand template activated. Right now, the primary consciousness on the planet, the human consciousness, is about between a 3 and a 3.5 strand activation, and it's moving up into full 4 strand activation, but it's not there yet. What we're seeing now is really D2 to 2.5. We're moving into being able to perceive dimension 3. If we could realize that it's only solid when you look at it from a certain angle, you start to realize you're not trapped. And you also might be able to begin to really feel, not just play with the concept, but feel the reality that, okay, when you think a thought, when you tell yourself something in your head, the words you choose, you just created something. The words themselves are a creation. They have an energy. That means they have a light and sound pattern. That means they have a scalar pattern. Scalar wave templates are the things that first come into being that accrete other frequency to fill themselves out in matter. Every word we tell ourselves inside our head and outside, we are creating a manifestation somewhere, either in our bodies or in our life out here. And it doesn't help a lot that we have the shadow body running on autopilot that just does whatever the heck it wants and gets impulsed all over the place. We can change our life. If you don't like the job you're in, you can change this. If you don't like the house you live in or the country you live in, you can change it. And it might not always be going out here. In fact, the least useful way to try to change something is to go after it three-dimensionally. If you can realize that it's in here that created this out here, and put your consciousness back in here, find the energy pattern of the thing you're trying to change, and change it in energy here. This is where you start to watch really wacky things happen in your hologram. Whoa, look at that. It did, well, I didn't quite think it would go that way, but yeah, I wanted a new car. I didn't think it would be because I totally totaled my other one and I had no choice, but at least I got a new one with the insurance money. Yeah. You also learn there's a specific responsibility of manifestation. It's kind of a good thing right now that things don't leap out of our heads instantaneously. There's a little time lag. It's really about a 3-day lag before it starts to filter down in to what we're manifesting begins to circulate back through. From the time we think it here, pull it through, and then it spits itself back out in the hologram. It's about a 3-day lag. If it was instantaneous, just imagine all the things you might have created already. Like when you got mad at somebody. You know, how many times would you have killed that ex-husband? You know? Whoops, didn't mean to, I really didn't mean to, I was just mad, I was just upset, you know. We need to learn, now relearn what we once knew and we were very good at, which is how to manage the energies of our emotional bodies, which is almost impossible to do while we have a shadow hanging over our left side that we don't know what to do with. So we're going to learn how to heal these parts of ourselves. But there's one thing that comes with power. We are going to get power progressively. We're going to get power through spirit, the power that was our gift in the first place. But with power comes responsibility. And the first and foremost responsibility is the responsibility of love. We, created as human beings, created as indigos, were created out of love, from love, through love, of love. We have a responsibility. If we want that quality to remain expressed and manifest, to embody it, hold it, be it, perpetuate it, just like our Creator did. With love as a responsibility. It really gets easy where you just ask yourself, am I acting out of love right now or something else? It might be fear, it might be anger, it might be depression, it might be absolutely justified because that person really has no right to do this to me, whatever. But there is always, if we can remember to remind our 3D minds to look for it, there is a way in any, no matter how horrible the situation is, an expression of divine love. Sometimes, if somebody's, let's say, is pointing a gun to your head and planning to shoot you, sometimes the expression of divine love is to stop that from happening. There's a feeling that comes with divine love where you can write down as many rules in a rule book that you want, as many commandments as you can think of. Thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that, but only sometimes, because sometimes that needs to be done. This is what's interesting. When you try to create a very rigid format, when man or woman tries to create a rigid format about what applies in every situation across the board, they lose touch with the nature of reality. It's fluid and moving. There are times when death is the right thing. Now, we don't endorse death. We don't endorse going around killing people, or yourselves for that matter. In fact, we try to convince people not to do things like that, because usually it's not worth it. But on the higher levels, what do you think avatars think? Beings who are eternal, and they know that. First of all, they look at death completely differently than we've been taught down here. It's just another way of energy moving. Nothing is lost. It just changes form. So from the avatar level, each of us has this avatar level too. Looking at life versus death, it's very different than looking at life as something to hold on to and death as something to fear. Just imagine if you were eternally stuck in the body you're in. You might get really sick of eternal life. There's a level of observation that comes with your Christos self. Now, what does an avatar know? All this stuff with the science, with the what's called the embodied Templar, and the planetary Templar. The Templar is the template, refers to the template pillars, the pillars of divine frequency that we'll find out about in Dance for Love, that anchor in and bring the consciousness of God perpetually into and out of manifestation. The Templar. Templar was originally a good word until the Knights Templar stole it. They were Illuminati. Their Templar quest. They were in quest for the Earth's grids. They were in quest to try to take it over. And they're helping the black hole people to try to pull the whole thing in. That's another story. Anyway, what we learn about in the Dance for program are things like this. Now, this is the holographic template. This is the primal substance. When we talk about these templates of scalar waves, What the heck's a scalar wave? Well, it's a standing columnar wave that shifts from a sound vibration to a light oscillation. It stands where it is, but turns on and off. But when it's off, it's still on doing something else. It's vibrating when it's in sound, and it's oscillating when it's in light. Now, there are three primary units that are really expressions of the Divine Trinity, just how we have the Manu, the Mane, and the Ire force. Well, the primal units of consciousness, when templates begin to be formed, are called Partikai, Particae, and Particum. Partikai represent the ante matter units, out of which matter particles and antiparticles emerge. So you have antimatter, from which comes matter and antimatter. It's like, if you look at it in terms of charge, electrical charge, you have no charge and all charge would be represented by the still point Partikai unit, which is an expression of the Manu force. And that breaks itself down and forms an Ire and a Mane. The Partikai, or K unit, which would be the antimatter or antiparticle core primal substance, would be an expression of the Mane force, and the Particum would be an expression of the Ire force. There is a process that's called Partikai phasing. It is the process by which these standing waves get built up by units of the consciousness of God, Partikai, Particae, and Particum, units of expression of the Manu, Mane, and Ire, continually cycle at different rhythms, where they go from a Partikai breaks down to become a Particae and a Particum. Then they come back together again. The Particae and Particum come back together and reform the Partikai. There's a continual cycle. And through this cycle, the energy of God, the consciousness of God, pulses into and out of manifestation through a very intricate structure. The structure of the Christ, K-R-I-S-T, which is the first manifestation, the first full manifestation of the mathematical template. We talk about the Christ, K-R-I-S-T, which is the word that Christos, Christalla, Christ, with the C's, all came out of originally. In fact, there are some ancient texts I've heard that some people are aware of that have been found where it was referred to as the K-R-I-S-T. And I believe they were Hebrew. I think they were in Hebrew writing. But anyway, Partikai, Particae, and Particum. What they do, these little units of the consciousness of God, as they cycle, they begin with a pattern that we'll go to in a minute called the Cathara grid, which is a 12-point grid. So you would have 12 points, still points, Manu points, that would form the Partikai, Particae, and Particum circulation and movement. We'll talk about the Cathara grid in a minute because it's the core structure out of which these things called Partikai grids emerge. When I talk about the template, the universal scalar grid, I'm talking about Partikai grids made of units of Partikai, Particae, and Particum, units of the consciousness of God that cycle and flash off and on from vibration to oscillation to still point, vibration to oscillation to still point. Okay? Partikai grids are groupings of like Partikai, Particae, and Particum. Particum units gravitate together like attracts like in this particular arrangement. So there are literally source flows more of its consciousness into the framework of creation through the Manu, the Mane, and the Ire, primal three trinity. And within that trinity then creates the Partikai grids. Partikai grids group by like polarization. Now, polarization means, see, this is what this is. You have a Partikai unit, and it polarizes, splits in two. One takes on a positive electrical charge, which is the Particae, which is the antimatter particle. The other takes on negative electrical charge. It's actually what's called a base magnetic charge. It's a drawing charge, a contracting pulse. And the Particae is an expanding pulse. So these are the basic forces of expansion and contraction that are set in motion. These are the basic physics of what your consciousness does every moment you're here in body, and even in the moments when you're flashing off and going back into source. There's a lot more on dimensional structure and Partikai, Particae, and Particum, and what they form. You see they continue to draw together like Particum units and like Particae units and like Partikai units. All will draw together to form a trinity of Partikai grids, interwoven Partikai grids. that creates the foundation for three-dimensional structure. Three-dimensional structure is where we get the illusion of the hologram. Most people that I've seen, the systems they teach about dimensionalization, say, oh, and there's like the fourth dimension or the fifth dimension. They use that in a very interesting way, because dimensions go in sets of three because of this primal order, because the primal trinity of the God forces and how those God forces break down and express that primal trinity through the part of Chi, part of K, and part of Chem. So all the way up the matter density scale, when you start at the top where there's no density, then you come into first sound vibration. First you have the stillness, the mane. Then you have the ire expression, the vibration, the sound, primal sound fields. Then you have the light, the mane, primal light fields. All through those structures. Whoop, excuse me. I hate when you do this. Excuse me a second. All right. Just a general? Okay. All right. I'm getting the general. Wrap it up quickly. We want to get to something at the end of this day. All right. They have something. There's something on the agenda that I don't know about yet. That's going to run at the end of the day. Probably maybe when we're doing the Suriyas or something like that. So he's telling me to just like hurry up. Anyway, he said if they want to read part of Chi, part of K, and part of Chem, they can go get Kathara. All right. Anyway, chelons. I just wanted to get to chelons. Just chelons. We got what? 5 minutes. Okay. Well, I am going to get to the 15-dimensional time matrix before we go to lunch. All right. Hey, though, some of you guys have seen me before, though. We can be like dragging forever, and then we just barrel on through anatomy in like 15 minutes, and it's like I talk so fast sometimes I wonder if you can hear me because I can't. Because anyway, all right. Part of Chi, part of K, and part of Chem units, the expression of the mano, mane, and ire force, group together to form three-dimensional part of Chi grids that draw in more of like kind of part of Chi, part of K, and part of Chem, which group together to form crystallizations of the units of the consciousness of God that are called chelons. And chelons group together, this would be a chelon, like that little pyramid-shaped thing there, or that little crystal-shaped thing there. They group together to form something even larger called chelon codes. These are the basic foundations. These chelon codes are actually what form the standing columnar waves of light and sound. And they oscillate and vibrate, and they shift in cycles between oscillation and vibration. So it comes back to very simple stuff, light and sound. We all have a template. This is what the template is composed of, and there's more physics behind it. If you want more physics behind it, like I said, you can read Kathara, or you can talk to the Guardians yourself, and you can translate those books, because I don't want to. I mean, technically, I have a 10th grade in high school science education, so I dropped out in 10th grade. So it wasn't that I was like this big brain or something that, had a lot of degrees and like studied physics and studied for 20 years of other people's work. I never studied anybody's work. The only place I ever studied was with the Guardians, and I did drop out of school in 10th grade. So that almost itself, it's like, most people say, wouldn't you be embarrassed to say this? No, actually, it lends credibility to the work. I must be talking to something, because it's not myself. I used to have to look up words in a dictionary when they come through, because I had such a small vocabulary. My vocabulary grew in leaps and bounds and went interdimensional and hyperdimensional, working with the teachers I'm working with. But I used to have to look stuff up in the dictionary when I come through because I didn't know the words. So anyway, on to the next one real quick. Which one do you want? That one looks good. Yeah, this one. I'll do this one real quick. Okay. Now, this is a quick one, and most of you that have followed the work are probably so sick of looking at this one already. I'll just go through it quick. This is a diagram of what's called one 15-dimensional time matrix. A time matrix is a reality field. You could think of it as a big egg-shaped bubble that has smaller egg-shaped bubbles within it. And each of those egg-shaped bubbles form a universe. When we look up in the sky and see all those stars and all those galaxies, and we send space probes way out to beyond nowhere, actually we're only seeing the smallest inside egg. Now, this diagram shows you a 15-dimensional time matrix. You have, first, what are called the big outside rim, 1, 2, 3, 3 levels of vibration fields, the primal sound fields. You have the triadic level, which is closest to manifestation, coming Godward. You have the triadic, then the polaric level, and then the ecadic level. These are coming Godward. So if you're going into manifestation, you'd pass them this way, and if you're coming out of it, you'd expand this way. Now, within the primal sound fields, the first things to form are up there, you see D15, 14, and 13. They're called the primal light fields. These are primal sound fields and primal light fields. We'll get into another diagram later that shows two what are called catharogrids that link together, that form the core template of 12 and 12. This is where we get the base 12 system. The Christos system, the eternal life creation system, is what is called a base 12 system. It's based on base 12 mathematics. And what forms from those base 12 mathematics is many, many different 15-dimensional time matrices that are part of a huge structure that we learn about in the Dance for Love part of the program when we get into the Eka maps of the God world gates. But first of all, we got to know where we are. Where we are is in one 15-dimensional time matrix. Right now,